Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Opened Dangerous Cafe? Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku cleaned the last of the cups, then took a look around the cafe. The stools in front of the bar were perfectly aligned, the bar itself was without a speck of dust, the booths and their tables were squeaky clean, the green walls were impeccable, and the knickknacks on the shelves were perfectly aligned. The TV in the corner was ready to be turned to the news to catch the latest hero fights. More importantly, his brand new coffee equipment was prepared and ready to go. He had ordered all the necessary material, from the gooseneck kettle to the coffee grinder without forgetting the very necessary coffee machine. It would be useful during the rush hours, even if he'd prefer to make the coffee by hand when it was calmer. He had also ordered a pretty large selection of coffee beans. Maybe it was a bit too much, especially at the start, but Izuku was sure it would be worth it in the long run. All in all, the Midori Cafe was ready for its grand opening. He made sure one last time his barista and management diplomas were in clear view and straight. Not that he was showing off. He just thought it'd be nice to have proof he was qualified for the job despite being 15. Turned on the radio to a smooth jazz station and went to the door to flip the open sign. He ignored the sting in his heart as he saw the UA building in the distance. It was better this way. He had a new dream after all, one that was almost realized. Just as he walked back behind the counter, the little bell over the door jingled, signaling someone coming in. Izuku turned around with a bright grin. "Welcome to Midori Cafe. What can I serve you? Oh my god, you're Eraserhead." He hadn't meant to say the second part out loud, but he couldn't have helped it. One of his favorite heroes was in his coffee shop. And as his first client at that. Well, if he didn't make him run away, that is. The hero's eyebrows shot up into his hairline, staring at him. "You know who I am?" he asked in a rugged voice. "I'm sorry, Eraserhead, sir, it's just I'm a bit of a hero fanboy and I have a special interest in underground heroics and you're one of the coolest heroes patrolling Mizudafu and I'm just gonna shut up now." Izuku took a deep breath and faced his customer again, his best smile on display. "Good morning, sir, what can I serve you?" The hero had an amused smile on his face, though it was laced with a bit of confusion. Or was it worry? "I'll take a black coffee, that's all," he ordered. Izuku got to work, grinding the beans as the coffee maker was warming. He tried not to shiver at the intense stare of the adult as he transferred the grounds to the filter. "Say," Eraserhead grumbled, "you look like you're about 15, shouldn't you be preparing for high school tomorrow instead of working in a cafe?" "Oh, I already have a high school diploma, passed it online last year," Izuku exclaimed with a proud smile. "And, pray tell, why did you pass your whole high school curriculum in a single year at 14? He served the coffee to the grumpy man. His eyes went wide as he tasted it. "Because I had the time while I was having my management formation and I thought it would be good to round up my education while I was at it." "A management formation?" "Yep," Izuku preened. "You're looking at Izuku Midoriya, proud owner of the Midori Cafe." Eraserhead pinched the bridge of his nose and was about to say something else when his phone beeped. He checked it, sighed and got up. "This discussion isn't finished, problem child, but I'm needed elsewhere. Guess I'll be back tomorrow for answers and more of your delicious coffee." "Yes, Eraserhead, sir," he grinned. "Just call me Shota, problem child. How much do I owe you for the coffee?" "Oh no, this one's on the house, for being my first customer." Izuku agitated his hands, face panicked. "Fine, I'll let this pass just this once, problem child." On those words, Shota left the cafe, and Izuku let out a sigh. He knew what question was awaiting him. How and why would a 15-year-old open a cafe instead of going to high school? And he didn't know how Eraserhead would react to that answer. After that particular encounter, Izuku got a few more customers throughout the day. No rush or anything, but enough patrons to mark it a success and hopefully starting getting regulars. He was also betting on the starting of classes at UA the next day to bring him more customers. Finally, as the clock rang 8, he flipped the open sign to closed and started cleaning the coffee shop. "Man, this would go way faster if I wasn't alone." he muttered as he scrubbed the tables. He mopped the floor, cleaned the counter, put the day's earnings in the safe under it, and finished by taking out the trash. The dumpster was in an alley back in between the shop and its neighbor. Izuku dumped the trash bags and stopped, frowning. There was a foul smell in the air, and not the one coming from the trash. No, it was another smell, a nauseatingly familiar one, the smell of burnt flesh. He looked around and sure enough, there was a man laying against the wall, wisps of smoke wafting from nasty-looking burns on his face and his arms. Izuku winced at the pitiful sight. Well, only one thing to do. The green-haired teen approached the smoking person and leaned down in front of him. The man looked at him weakly, eyes full of hurt and confusion. As gently as possible, Izuku lifted him from the ground and walked him back into the shop, then to a set of stairs at the far end of the counter. Not without difficulty, they climbed it and reached Izuku's apartment. "What are you doing?" the stranger finally mumbled. "Helping you," he answered with finality. The man blinked at him, but didn't say more. The teen sat him on his couch and pinned him with a glare. "Don't move." Then he went to his bathroom and took out his first aid kit. He thanked his overprepared but when he pulled out the large tube of burn. "Hopefully it'll be enough," he whispered. He went back to his living room and started applying the cream to the stranger. Aside from wincing and hissing, he said nothing. Izuku made him take off his shirt to see what exactly he was working with, and in the air between his teeth, most of his torso and his arms were burned. In the end, the whole tube of cream was used, and the teen was glad again he had bought the largest. "Didn't expect I'd use it for that, though." Then he wrapped him in bandages. Once they were done, Izuku helped the man to the guest room and laid him down on the bed. "You can spend the night here. We can talk tomorrow, once you feel better." Thanks. Think nothing of it." Izuku walked out of the guest room and closed it softly. He could already hear soft snoring from inside. The poor guy must have been totally exhausted by whatever happened to him. The teen yawned. He, too, was exhausted by his first day of work and the strange turn it took. He ate a quick dinner and dragged himself to bed, quickly falling to sleep and putting an end to this long day. Izuku woke up bright and early. He prepared breakfast, being mindful to make enough for 2 people. As he was gulping his miso soup, the guest room's door opened and in walked his unexpected guest. His burns, peeking through the bandages, had turned from an angry red to a pink. He was gonna get scars, that was for sure, but it would be way less dire than if he had gone around leaving them untreated. "There's rice in the cooker and miso soup on the stove. I left you bowls out, so help yourself to what you want," Izuku said with a smile. "Thank you," he said, and served himself a portion of rice. He took a seat in front of Izuku. The two ate in silence for a while, then the teen asked, "So, what should I call you?" The stranger stared at him for a second, then, "Toya." "Nice to meet you, Toya. My name's Izuku," he answered with a soft smile. Toya nodded and took a bit of rice. "So, can I ask you what happened to you? It doesn't feel like it was done by a villain." "This is my own quirk's fault," he said, staring into his bowl. "So you have a fire quirk, and a strong one at that, to leave such scars, but it seems like you don't have the built-in resistance that should come with it." Izuku mumbled. The man was staring at him, an eyebrow raised. "Sorry," he said, "I'm a bit of a quirk nerd." "No problem, it's just surprising how accurate you are even though you didn't even see it in action." "Well, considering what it does to your body, I'd rather not." Toya snorted. "That's a nice thought, kid." They finished eating in silence, then Izuku got up to do the dishes. "Hey, will you need help getting home, or do you think you can walk fine?" There was silence for a moment, then, "I don't have a home. Not anymore." Izuku's heart squeezed at the sad but resigned tone. He wanted to ask more, but he wasn't sure Toya would open up like that. He seemed a little closed in on himself. The teen saw his middle school self in him, and wasn't that a thought? So instead of digging, he started formulating an idea. "So, you need a place to stay, right?" he asked as he turned with a grin. "I guess so," Toya answered, perplexed. "Then I have a proposition for you." "Well, more of a deal." The man squinted at him. "I'm listening." "You work in my cafe as a waiter, and in exchange, you can keep the room. Of course, you'd be paid on top, though for now I can't promise a large paycheck. I just opened up after all. Wait, hold up, the white-haired man blinked hard. You own a cafe? Aren't you like 12? I'm 15, thank you very much. And yes, I own a cafe, as well as this apartment on top of it. Now, what do you say? I mean, it's not like I have other options right now. Toya took a minute to think it over. Why the F not? It's a deal. Great. I'll dig you up an apron, we open in an hour. They shook hands on it and Izuku walked down to get a spare apron. They opened the Midori Cafe and Izuku took advantage of the calm to list Toya's new responsibilities. So basically, you'll take the orders, you'll bring the drinks to the booths and clean the dishes as well as the tables once the patrons leave. Maybe down the line I'll show you how to make coffee so you can help with that, but one thing at a time. Understood? Aye, mini-boss. Toya said with a sheet-eating grin. Seriously? Izuku deadpanned. You may be my boss, but you still are 9 years younger than me. I think that's fitting. Izuku rubbed his face in exasperation. You know what, fine, not the worst thing I've been called. He ignored the man's raised eyebrow as he turned to the window. Looks like we're getting our first clients of the day. Be nice. Yes, mini-boss. Indeed, a few seconds later, Eraserhead entered the coffee shop, jingling the bell over the door, accompanied by a man in a tan coat and hat. Problem child. Shota greeted as he sat at the counter, followed by his friend. Shota. Izuku greeted back. Good morning, sir. Nice to meet you, I'm Detective Tsukachi, the man said with a soft, slightly tired smile. You brought a detective? I can assure you my work is totally legal. Izuku half-joked. Don't worry, I'm just here as a fellow coffee amateur, the detective said. We'll take 2 black coffees. Shota added. Izuku got to work, selecting the beans and grinding them, while the kettle was heating on the stove. He versed the steaming water over the filter, filling a coffee pot with the beverage. He served the 2 men with a proud smile as their faces relaxed under the bittersweet aroma. So, problem child, I do still have a question for you. Eraserhead mentioned between 2 sips. You want to know why a teenager is manning a coffee shop instead of going to school, I guess. The man nodded. Izuku side-eyed Toya, who was scrubbing the counter and very obviously listening on their conversation. Well, time to get the cat out of the bag. You see, there are some loopholes and gray zones in the law that make it so the quirkless can start to work as soon as 13 years old. I took 2 years getting training as a barista and in management, as well as finishing my education online, and here I am, with my own little hole-in-the-wall coffee shop. Shota was frowning, while Toya had wide eyes at the revelation, but Detective Tsukachi only had understanding on his face. Izuku stared at him, and in a silent conversation he understood. They were in the same boat. Izuku nodded at him, which the detective returned. What kind of bullshit is that? Shota grumbled. He's right, the laws around the quirkless are rather lax. After all, why bother for such a small part of the population? The detective said with a sour tone. Still, why not just finish your education the normal way instead of throwing yourself into work? The rugged man asked. I was getting tired of the bullying. And I've decided I wanted to open a cafe when I finally realized it would be impossible for me to be a hero. I didn't want to wait years before I could accomplish my new dream. And what happens if you have problems here? I have a baseball bat under the counter, and I know how to use it. Izuku said with a sheet-eating grin. Shota sighed. Don't worry about him, kiddo, it's just his teacher's instincts kicking in, the detective smirked. Wait, you're a teacher, Shota? That's so cool. Which reminds me that I should head to UA soon to see my new batch of brats. How much do we owe you for the coffees? Minus 300 yens. Shota dropped 600 yens on the counter and started walking away. The detective lingered, slipping a card to Izuku. This is my number, kiddo. If you ever have a problem, call me. Izuku read the card and smiled. Thank you, Naomasa. I will. My name's Izuku, by the way. Well, Izuku, I wish you good luck with your cafe. And he followed behind Eraserhead. Not gonna bail on me now that you know the truth? Nah, mini-boss, I know what it's like to be treated like shit for something out of your control. You're good in my books. Thanks, Toya. Izuku said with a warm smile, filing the tidbit of information away in a corner of his mind. The rest of the day went by smoothly. As Izuku had predicted, they got a semi-rush of students about half an hour after the visit of the teacher and the detective. Toya handled the service with efficiency while Izuku inaugurated the coffee machine. Past that morning rush, they got a few patrons trickling in through the day, including people that had stopped by the previous day. All in all, the cafe had its little success and Izuku couldn't be happier. The day came to an end and he flipped the sign to closed. Toya and him made quick work of the cleaning. Once they were done, Izuku locked up all the doors and they went up to the apartment. Izuku cooked them dinner, helped Toya change his bandages, and they went to sleep satisfied of a day well spent. Toya had known Izuku for a few days now, and if anything happened to the Sunshine Teen he would kill everyone in the room and them himself. Not that he'd admit it out loud, he had a reputation to preserve, after all. Still, the kid had been a blessing in a life that had been shitty until now. When he had burned himself to a crisp in a last-ditch effort to prove to his father that he wasn't useless, he had thought for sure he was gonna die. Even after leaving the manor, he wasn't sure he'd survive his burns. Only for a random teen to pop up and take care of him. At first he had been wary of the kid, though he couldn't do much in the state that he was. But Izuku had taken him in, treated his wounds, and offered him a place to stay. No question asked about his peculiar situation, just a quiet understanding that he wasn't ready to open up. Considering the kid was quirkless, he probably had his own shitty past too, which would explain why he wasn't pushing. Toya appreciated that. The teen also cooked their meals, and his food was quite good. The man would have offered to cook sometimes, but his training hadn't left any place to learn that, so he doubted his own skills. Maybe he'd ask Izuku to teach him someday. He also liked to babble about heroes and quirks. A lot. He dissected them like it was nothing, and at an impressive rate. The first evening, Toya had gotten an impromptu presentation on Shota, who happened to be the underground pro-hero Eraserhead. For the man's peace of mind, the kid had never mentioned Endeavor in his rants. Concerning the cafe, Toya found himself enjoying the job, surprisingly. It was nice to chat with the patrons in between two orders, and cleaning the booths and the dishes wasn't particularly hard, per se. It's not like they drowned in clients, just the small rush of students before school started. Shota had also been a solid regular, dropping by every early morning for his cup of coffee. Then the rest of the day was usually a slow trickle of people, regulars and new faces alike. Seriously, after what he had lived through, this job was a breath of fresh air. One morning, Toya brought up a question that had been gnawing at him for a while now. "Hey, Izuku," he asked as they ate breakfast. Where are your parents, if you don't mind me asking?" "Oh, they're in the USA." Izuku answered casually. Toya raised his eyebrows. "They left you alone?" "Well, not really. Dad was relocated there for work when I was 5. And I convinced Mom to join him once I managed to prove to her I could be independent. It wasn't an easy feat, she's a bit of a worrywart, but in the end I won her over," the teen grinned. "Don't you miss them?" "A bit, but we video call once a week, so that helps." "Why are you asking you miss your parents?" Toya pinched his lips. How much should he share? "I, haven't seen my mother in a long time." "I miss her," he finally answered. Izuku nodded in. Understanding. "Maybe one day you'll see her again?" the teen suggested. "Yeah, maybe." They finished eating in silence, then descended to open the Midori Cafe. Like a well-oiled clock, Shota arrived with a nod and took his usual stool. Izuku served him his coffee and went to check his beans. Toya took advantage and decided to have a little talk with the teacher. "Appreciating the coffee, sir?" Shota blinked at him. "I do. You're the new waiter, right?" "Yep, Toya, to serve you." "How old are you exactly?" "I'm in my 20s. Toya answered, guarded. "And you don't mind working for a teenager?" "Nah, Miniboss is cool, he got me out of a hard place and offered me a cool job as well as a place to live. The kid's impressive, you know, living by himself while his parents are out of the country." "Living by himself?" "Well, living with me, but it's not like I have any authority over him." An elderly couple entered the cafe, and Toya left the hero to go take the orders. He overheard Eraserhead call out his problem child, and listened in on their conversation as he brought Izuku the orders. "This is my personal number, problem child. If you ever need something or you're facing a problem, call it." "Thanks, Shota, it means a lot." He went to the door that led to the stairs to the apartment, on which there was a cork board. It served to put notes for the groceries, what needed to be ordered for the cafe, this kind of things. He pinned the piece of paper with the number right next to the detective's card, up in center. He then went and prepared 2 hot chocolates for the couple, which Toya brought. He chatted with them a bit, about their lives and how things were going, while Izuku was making small talk with Eraserhead. Soon enough, they all departed after paying, the couple slipping a hefty tip to Toya. Now on to the serious things. The student rush would start soon. And each day it was more important than the last, as the word of mouth seemed to spread through the school. It was proven as a tall raven-haired girl wearing it in a ponytail entered the cafe, an air of elegance surrounding her. This girl basically screamed money. But the most interesting was Mini-Boss' reaction. He looked mesmerized, eyes wide and mouth slightly agape. As she approached and took a stool, he coughed in his hand and put back his barista persona on. "Hello, miss, what can I serve you?" "Well, I see you have quite the selection of beans, why don't you surprise me?" Izuku winked at her before selecting a few beans, weighing them and grinding them. He versed water through the filter and served the cup. "There you go, miss." She took a sip and hummed in delight. "It has such a rich flavor and a complex aroma." "What coffee is this?" she asked. "It's Hawaiian Kona." "It's pretty girl, pretty good, right?" Toya snorted, getting a stink eye from his boss, while the girl giggled in her cup, cheeks pink. She kept sipping at her coffee, looking around. "I have to say, have quite a nice cafe. Your boss must be very proud," she remarked. "Oh, trust me he is, right Mini-Boss?" Toya intervened. The girl's eyes widened as Izuku's cheeks turned a bit red, a grin on his face. "You're the boss? But aren't you my age?" she asked. "That's right, miss, but being quirkless gives me some leeway with the law," he answered, rubbing the back of his head. "Running a coffee shop at only 15, that's quite impressive, I admire your drive." Thank you, miss." "Oh, how impolite of me, we're discussing and I haven't introduced myself. My name is Momo Yaoyorozu, I am a student in Class 1A of the Hero course at UA." Toya noticed the slight wince of his boss when she mentioned the Hero course. Izuku offered his hand and introduced himself. "Izuku Midoriya, humble owner of the Midori Cafe." They shook hands, and Toya smirked as he noticed how their hands lingered half a second too long. Momo finished her coffee and left for class. The rush started not long after, and Izuku and Toya worked in tandem to take care of the wave of students with the few businessmen on their way to work. Once the rush calmed down, the duo sighed, the older one cleaning the booths while the younger one cleaned the cups. If those rushes kept getting more intense, Izuku would have to think about hiring a third pair of hands. For now, though, Toya and him would have to do to keep the cafe running. Fortunately, the rest of the day passed more calmly. There were a few students that dropped by after classes, but it was nothing quite as hectic as the morning rush. The evening quickly came and they got to work cleaning the cafe. Izuku reordered milk and some coffee beans, and then, once the cafe was closed, they went upstairs for dinner then went to bed. The day had started like any other, except for one exception. The TV in the corner of the cafe was tuned to a hero fight happening downtown. Izuku and Toya were watching, and the teen had a notebook open, scribbling at a very fast pace as the hero, a man with bright blue eyes and white hair, faced a cyclops with a volcano on the head. Their first regular, Shota, walked in at this moment. He raised an eyebrow at the scene, but took his usual place at what had quickly become his stool. He didn't even need to order as Izuku made him his coffee. The young cafe owner redirected his attention to the TV and started mumbling. His quirk lets him create spheres that push or pull, it's a really versatile power. I wonder if it's the full extent of his abilities or if he's holding back. Whatever it is, with such a power he can easily counter the flames of the villain, using his repulsion. He could have easily won already, it's like he's playing with him? Oh, he's got interns. He's probably turned the fight into a lesson. That's smart, though I hope it won't lead to collateral damages. Shota was staring at him in surprise. You got a good head on your shoulders, problem child. Ah. Izuku answered smartly. Analysis. It's rather good for something done on the fly like that. Is there more on that in that notebook of yours? Can I check? Sure. The teen handed the notebook to Shota, whose eyes grew wider and wider as he read the pages full of quirk analysis on various heroes, dissecting their strengths and weaknesses as well as way to cover those with support equipment. Problem child, he called his attention, this is impressive. It's just a hobby I've had since I was a kid. It's nothing special really. Izuku answered, rubbing his neck. Are you kidding? I've got most of my third-year hero students incapable of this level of accuracy. You've got a bright mind, problem child. Hell with this kind of analytical mind dash. Shota, no. You could become a hero dash. Shota please. Quirk or no quirk? Izuku slammed his hands on the counter, making Shota and Toya jump. There were tears in his eyes. I've abandoned this stupid dream years ago, he choked. I've got the cafe now, and I'm perfectly happy here. If you say so, kid, I won't push you. Eraserhead paid and left. Izuku cleaned his tears, appreciative that Toya was looking the other way. He took a deep inspiration to find his countenance back, and let his barista persona slip on like a mask. All right, Toya, how about I show you how to operate the coffee machine before the morning rush starts? Toya grinned. Sure thing, mini-boss. By the time Momo showed up, the last few minutes of calm before the rush, Toya knew the basics on how to make coffee with the machine. He kept repeating to himself the order of actions as Izuku welcomed the raven-haired girl. Good morning, Momo, he smiled at her. Hello, Izuku, she smiled back. Your usual? Yes, please. Izuku started working on her drink. So, how's school? The teen inquired as he served her cup. Things are going well. Our professor is strict but fair, and the classes are enlightening. Oh, and I was elected vice president by my peers yesterday. Oh, congratulations. What about you? How's the cafe doing? Well, this first week was a success, so we're off to a good start. We get a good morning rush that generates most of our earnings and we're starting to really build a solid base of regulars. So, I'm optimistic for the future. That's great to hear. They stared in each other's eyes, smiling. The spell was broken by Toya coughing loudly next to them. The morning rush is gonna start soon, mini-boss. We should prepare. Right? You're right, he answered, blushing. And I need to get to class anyway. Momo added, cheeks pink. She left right as the first wave of students entered. Izuku and Toya exchanged a nod, and they got to work. Izuku stretched as the rush finally died down. Toya was wiping the sweat on his brows, mumbling, We could really use another pair of hands. I know. Give me some more time to put more money aside and I'll post an ad. Speaking of money, though, Izuku offered Toya envelope. Inside was a bunch of yen bills. What's that? He asked, mouth agape. Your pay for the week, silly. It's a little under what I would have want to pay you, but since we just opened. But I kinda assumed the payment was the fact you let me live at your place for free. Nah, that's more of an employee perk. You really thought I wouldn't pay you for your hard work? How would you be able to buy clothes, or snacks, or just anything you want? Your room could use some decoration. Toya was speechless. This kid really was an angel. This reminds me, you have your weekend off. Maybe you can go do some shopping at that time? Izuku added. The whole weekend off? Are you sure you'll be able to manage that? Toya asked with a raised eyebrow. I decided to only open on the mornings on Saturdays, and to close on Sundays. I need rest too, after all. Smart. Well, thank you, mini-boss, he said, bowing. It's normal, don't worry. Izuku said with a grin. Clients got in at this moment, and Toya moved in to take their order while Izuku moved back behind the counter. Once the patrons were served, the teen busied himself by cleaning the counter while his waiter was playing at spinning his tray. That's when the television caught Izuku's eye. They were talking about UA. He turned the volume on and listened to the journalist. A terrible attack just happened on the grounds of UA when a group of villains invaded one of the training structures. 2 teachers are in a critical state, but fortunately the students, Class 1A of the Hero course, came out relatively unscathed thanks to the intervention of All Might. On another good note, the leaders of the attack have been arrested and put into custody. The teen tuned out the rest of the news. She had said Class 1A, right? That was Momo's class. Was she okay? The journalist did say the students had come out unscathed, but still? What if something had happened? The ring of the bell cut him out of his thoughts, and in walked a familiar face. Momo. Hello again, Izuku, she smiled tiredly. Are you sure you should be here, kiddo? We saw what happened on the news. That must have been terrifying. Toya added. We're a little shook, yes, but we're okay. And I thought a coffee would be the perfect pick-me-up. Gonna introduce us, Yamamoto? A voice behind her called. Oh, of course. I brought some friends with me. This is Kyoka and Hitoshi. She pointed to a small dark-haired girl with earphone jacks dangling from her ears, then to a boy with purple eyes and hair, which was defying gravity. Toya, he introduced himself. And I recognize you. He pointed at Hitoshi. You're a regular of the morning rush. Guilty as charged, the boy said with a grin. I wouldn't survive the day without your coffee. Well, I'm Izuku, the owner. Pleasure having you in my humble establishment. Izuku would never tire of the looks of astonishment he got when he announced he owned the cafe. The surprise passed. The teens took a booth and Toya took their order, her usual for Momo, a cappuccino for Kyoka and a macchiato with 5 espresso shots for Hitoshi. Taking advantage of the fact they had no other clients, Izuku sat with them, making sure they were really okay. They explained a bit of what had happened, the terror of being separated and having to fight villains, the absolute horror of seeing their teacher absolutely beat up. That made the teen worry about Shota. They had chatted a lot in the mornings when he came for his usual, and it had come up he was 1A's teacher. Knowing he was in a critical state gripped at his stomach. Momo seemed to feel his stress and drop her hand on his. Don't worry, Recovery Girl is taking care of him, and the worst was avoided thanks to All Might. Izuku smiled at her with reconnaissance. Once again, Toya coughing broke the spell and they both looked up to find Kyoka and Hitoshi with twin sheet-eating grins. We have clients, mini-boss. The scarred man called out smugly. Coming. Izuku slipped out of the booth like it was on fire and rushed to the counter. Interesting. Kyoka commented, earning a nod from Hitoshi. I don't know what you're talking about. Momo said primly, ignoring her pink cheeks. The trio of students ended up leaving not long after, leaving their payment on the table. They got a couple other clients on the rest of the afternoon, but soon enough it was time to close. As Toya finished sweeping the floor, Izuku took out the trash. As he threw the bag in the dumpster, he heard a whimper. He walked to the other side of the dumpster, and found a girl who looked a bit older than him prostrated on the floor, whining pitifully and mumbling. Blood? Need blood? Well, if it doesn't feel like déjà vu. Izuku thought as he carefully lifted the too light girl from the ground. Toya looked at him with raised eyebrows, mouth slightly agape, as Izuku walked in with an unconscious girl in his arms. Softly but with feeling he asked, What the F-dash mini-boss? Well, you're gonna laugh, but I found her in the alley. Toya sighed, rubbing his face. I'm guessing we're taking her in? You're guessing right. Now let's go. They climbed the stairs to the apartment and Izuku laid the girl on the couch. She opened her eyes with difficulty, whimpering weakly. What? Blood? She muttered. Izuku thought for a minute, then left for the kitchen. He went back with a knife and slashed his hand. Are you crazy? Toya shouted. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Toya grumbled as he went to retrieve the first aid kit. Meanwhile, Izuku approached his hand to the girl's mouth. She sniffed for a bit, and her eyes opened wide. She threw herself at his cut, lapping eagerly at the blood. Once she was done, she looked at him with hazy eyes. More, I need more. All right. Izuku said as he rolled up his sleeve. But not too much, or you'll make the both of us sick, okay? She nodded, then bit into his arm right as Toya came. But, oh great, you brought home a vampire. the man grumbled. Be nice. If my gut feeling is correct, she wasn't treated well, the teen answered. After a few minutes, during which the scarred man disinfected and bandaged his boss hand, Izuku gently pulled his arm away. The girl let out a whine, but she already seemed way more alert. Toya started dabbing disinfectant on the bite marks while the green-haired teen smiled softly at the girl. Feeling better? He asked. I actually haven't felt that good in a long time, she said, blinking. Where am I? You're at my place. My name's Izuku, and the grumpy man here is my roommate, Toya. You're safe here. She looked at them for a while, likely gauging them. Toya was busy bandaging Izuku, and the latter gave his most nice, non-threatening smile. Himiko. My name is Himiko, she finally said. Thank you for giving me blood. You're welcome. You're not used to getting it, do you? No. My parents thought it was a horrible thing and defended me from drinking blood. That's why I ran away. Izuku gently rested his hand on Himiko's. It's not a horrible thing at all, it's just a part of your quirk. Whatever it is, I'm guessing it's blood-based, and blood-based quirks usually require their user to drink blood regularly just like eating, for risks of side effects. It's what they did to you that was horrible, not you. Himiko fell forward, into Izuku's arms, sobbing. No one has ever been this nice to me in forever. Izuku sighed, hugging her tight. Toya ruffled her hair. How about we go to sleep for tonight? We can discuss your situation tomorrow. The girl nodded while Toya grinned, knowing where this was likely going. Izuku unfolded the sofa into a bed for Himiko and left her a bottle of water near. The white-haired man retreated to his own room, and Izuku did the same. As usual, Izuku was the first up, cooking breakfast. Toya dragged himself from his room and sat at the table, rubbing his eyes and yawning. The teen served him some rice and miso soup when Himiko timidly walked in from the living room. She was clearly nervous, so Izuku waved her over with a soft smile, placing a serving of food on the table. Good morning, Himiko. Did you sleep well? I did, thank you. She sat at the table, and after some hesitation she started digging into food. The green-haired teen joined them and they ate in silence. Once they were done, Himiko turned towards Izuku and in a small voice, asked, Can I have more blood? Sure, Izuku said, rolling up his sleeve, but remember, not too much, okay? She nodded and bit into his arm. Why does she need to not take too much, by the way? Aside from the fact we don't want you bled dry, of course. Toya asked. She hasn't had blood in years, she's basically malnourished. We don't know what side effects could happen if she suddenly gorged herself. Oh yeah, that makes sense. This time, the girl stopped by herself, sighing with satisfaction. Thank you so much, she said with a bright smile. Don't worry about it, the teen replied. So, you're gonna keep letting her feed on you? Toya asked. No, that would cause complications on the long term, but don't worry, I've already ordered an alternative. Ominous, the scarred man answered. Well, for now, I gotta go open the shop. Himiko, why don't you rest a little more, stay with Toya? I'll be back for lunch and then we can discuss where we're gonna go from here, okay? She nodded and went back to the living room. After helping with the dishes, Toya followed her. Izuku, meanwhile, put on his apron and descended to open the Midori Cafe for the morning. As expected, without the UA students things were a lot calmer. The teen took care of the few clients that passed by, and by the time lunch rolled around he had finished cleaning and was going back up at the apartment. In his hands was a box, the thing he had ordered upon waking up that morning and that should solve their blood problem. He found Himiko and Toya in front of the TV, engrossed in an episode of Pokemon. He got a few complaints when he walked in front of the screen, but their grumbling died when he dropped the box on the coffee table. What's that? Toya asked. That, my dear friend, is our solution for our guest's need for blood. For me? Himiko wondered. Izuku opened the box and fetched a pouch from inside. Those, he said with flourish, are pig blood pouches, produced by a small business that works with butchers to give a safe option for those who have quirks that require them to drink blood. A pouch a day is enough to quench your thirst, and I've passed a contract to receive them weekly. The teenage girl started sobbing and threw herself in Izuku's arms. He rubbed circles on her back as she cried on his shoulder, whispering thank you over and over again. It's okay, don't worry about it, he said. Once she had calmed down, they put the pouches in the fridge and finally sat down for the long-awaited conversation. So, Izuku started, I'm guessing you don't want to go back to your parents? Himiko shook her head. You know, they haven't even filed a missing person case. I'm not researched or anything. I think they're glad to be rid of me, she said morosely. Assholes. Toya grumbled. Well, it's their loss then. Izuku continued. But let's cut to the chase. I have a proposition for you. Okay. You work for me as a waitress in my cafe downstairs, and in addition to the paycheck each week, you get a few certain perks that include a room in the apartment, 3 meals a day, and of course your daily dose of blood. You'd also have your weekends off. So, what do you think? Himiko seemed to think it over, lips pinched. What am I supposed to do on this job? She asked. Well, the basics. Take orders, bring them to the clients, clean the tables and do the dishes. Toya will be here to coach you on Monday, if you accept. Turn to Toya. Is it hard? Not really, he answered. We have a bit of a morning rush, with the students about to go to class and the workers on their way to their job, but between the two of us it should be more manageable. And after that it's pretty chill. He leaned towards her and fake whispered. You even have time to watch what's on the TV or chat with the patrons. Himiko giggled. Then she took a big inspiration and offered her hand to Izuku. I accept. Izuku shook her hand. Welcome aboard, then, Himiko, he said with a bright smile, which she reciprocated. Hey, quick question, how old are you? Toya asked. I'm 17, why? Toya sprouted a grin of what could be called the sheet-eating variety. In this case you're also welcome to the club of employees that are older than their boss, he said smugly. She looked up and down at Izuku, as if seen for the first time. Wait, how old are you? She asked, perplexed. I'm 15, he answered with a sigh. Her eyes went wide. We can go over the how and why I own a cafe at 15 later. For now we have an important task, shopping. Shopping? They both asked in unison. Yup. First of all you both need more clothes. You also need furniture for your rooms. Toya's totally bare and could use some decoration, and Himiko's is just an empty room right now, it doesn't even have a bed. There's also the need for toiletries, of course. You deserve better than a Konbini toiletry kit, Toya. That's gonna be a lot, can we really afford that? The man asked. Don't worry, I have some savings aside, we can afford to tap into it. If you're sure, mini-boss. Yeah, shopping, what are we waiting for, a Izuku token? Himiko exclaimed with an excited wiggle. Let's go. Izuku laughed. They descended the stairs and walked out the cafe, making their way to the mall. Himiko hummed excitedly as Izuku, Token and her entered the Kiyoshi Ward shopping mall. The place was bustling with people of all shapes and sizes, taking advantage of their weekend to do a little shopping. Izuku stopped them at the large map of the mall near the entrance, trying to plan their itinerary. Her new boss seemed like the kind that liked organization. So, he said, pointing at different shops on the map, the furniture shop is on the first floor, so we'll drop there first, get what we need for Himiko. Then I know these shops around here sell all kinds of merch, so we should find you things to decorate your rooms. Finally, we'll go to the second floor for the clothes. Oh, and don't worry, Toya, they have a hot topic, he finished with a sheet-eating grin. You're so funny. Toya deadpanned. So you're saying we can skip it? Absolutely effing not. The two teens laughed while the man pouted. Himiko liked her new friends, they were funny. She followed Izuku as he led them to the furniture store. They started with the most important, the bed. She tried several until she found a cute one made of light pink wood that was very comfortable. There was an assorted bedside cabinet, as well as a dresser and a wardrobe. In other words, she could make her whole room in soft pink furniture. I need this room, Izuku, she said with the utmost seriousness. Izuku nodded just as seriously and started taking pictures of the labels. Won't all this pink feel a little monotone? Token asked, an eyebrow ped. Silly Token, that's what the decoration will be for, to make it pop, she answered excitedly. The man shrugged in a fair enough fashion, and turned towards their boss who was finishing with his pictures. Okay, that takes care of it. Toya, do you need something for your room while we're at it? The younger teen asked. I wouldn't say no to a carpet, he answered. Oh, me too. Me too, she added. With a nod from their boss, they searched for the carpets. Once they found it, they both started perusing their options while Izuku stood at the end of the aisle with his hands on his hips, standing like a father overwatching his children. The vision made Himiko giggle, and she whispered it to Token, who snorted. In the end, Himiko stopped her choice on a pink and white striped carpet, while Token chose a boring all-black one. Fortunately, Izuku knew the dimensions of the rooms so they could choose carpets that weren't too wide. Next, and they almost forgot, was getting a desk lamp for her. She chose a pretty red one with bat motifs on it. With their choices in hand, they made their way to the checkout. The cashier scanned their articles as well as the pictures Izuku had taken of the furniture labels, and arranged for them to be delivered at the cafe at the end of the afternoon. Next stop was the merch shop. This one was one of the few that wasn't entirely dedicated to heroes, though they still did have a selection of posters and figurines. Token practically threw himself at the band posters, grabbing a few of Deep Dope. She herself went for the video games ones, a poster of Lollipop Chainsaw, 2 of Doom and 1 of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Perfect. She also snatched a figurine of Hatsune Miku as the final touch. Oh yeah, her room would be so cool. Once they were done with their selection, they found Izuku looking at the hero figurines with stars in his eyes. Found something you like? Token asked with a smirk. The teen turned towards them. Nah, just watching. It looks like you guys did though. Yep, she grinned. They went through checkout, Izuku paying once again. He insisted for taking their bags of goodies too, citing that they'd need their hands free for the final step, which was getting them clothes. Himiko was more than glad for this one. She only had her school uniform, which she was wearing when she ran away from home. She was itching to get some cute casual clothes to wear again. As promised, they first made a stop at the Hot Topic. Token grabbed a few Deep Dope shirts, a couple of pairs of black jeans, a pair of black boots, and he was practically giving hard eyes to a long black coat. To wear on the weekends, he said. Then it was her turn. They went to a more classic store and she got a couple of red t-shirts, pink cardigans, a couple of black skirts as well as 2 pairs of dark pink leggings, and a pair of hot pink baskets. With the 2 satisfied, it was finally time to go home. Okay, maybe it was a bit early to call it home. She had literally just moved in. Heck, her room was empty right now, but it did feel like home. She felt safe there, and she thought she had a real connection with Izuku and Token. They reached the cafe and Token immediately went to his room to decorate and put away his new clothes in his wardrobe. She put her stuff in the empty room that was now hers, and went to watch TV while Izuku got started on preparing dinner. That was around this time her furniture was delivered. Token and Izuku brought it up the stairs, not without difficulty, and stacked the boxes in the empty room. It was then decided that they'd build up the furniture on Sunday. They ate the curry Izuku had prepared them, watched a few episodes of Pokemon and prepared to bed, and Himiko prepared to sleep one last time on the couch turn bed. Building furniture was funny, when all you had to do was watch. Izuku and Token kept insisting they didn't need her help, so she just observed and made a commentary from her newly built bed. It had only taken an hour, as the boys were fighting with the wardrobe. It took them 2 more hours, but finally all the furniture was built and the decoration was set. Himiko observed her new room with stars in her eyes. It was a far cry from the bland room she used to sleep in. This one felt like her. She gave the duo a hug to thank them, and they moved to the kitchen to eat dinner. Then they went to the living room. Hey, I have an idea. We should talk a bit about ourselves, get to know each other better now that we all live together. Himiko exclaimed excitedly as she jumped on the couch. That's not a bad idea. Izuku said with a hand rubbing behind his neck. It's true that I've been living here for a week and we don't know each other that well, Izuku. Token added. Well, where do I start? The younger teen asked. I'm quirkless, and thanks to some loopholes in the laws regarding us I was able to train then open a cafe at 15. I'm a huge hero and quirk nerd. I love analyzing them, dissecting their strengths and their weaknesses. I don't really have hobbies aside from that and the cafe. I used to have another dream, but I've given up on that. Oh, and I was bullied in school for my lack of quirk. Not the most joyous introduction, I guess, eh? He laughed self-deprecatingly. Himiko hugged him while Token put a hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, Izuku, you have us now. We don't care that you're quirkless and we'll defend you against anyone who has a problem with it. A tear rolled from his eye, but he was smiling. Thanks guys, it means a lot. Guess it's my turn then. Token piped up after a couple of seconds. My father is an absolutely abusive a-hole. He wanted to train my quirk, cremation, to its absolute limits. Except my body couldn't handle it, and it led to me burning myself to a crisp. Then he kicked me out. That's around when Izuku found me. As for my hobbies, I mainly like to listen to punk music and I don't do half bad on a guitar. That's actually the first thing I wanna buy myself with my pay. Himiko hugged him too. I'm glad Izuku found you. Yeah, so am I. It's nice to have a friend for the very first time. Hey, you're my very first friend too. The two fist bumped. But then she realized it was her turn to open up. She gulped and started. My quirk lets me drink people's blood and then take their appearance. My parents didn't like that, so they forced me to suppress it. I felt famished, lightheaded and manic from the lack of blood. I actually almost attacked a classmate once. I had enough lucidity left to stop myself and I ran as far away as I could. I spent a few days in the streets, and then I ended up in your alley. On a brighter note, I like playing video games and I'm a pop music fan, she grinned. There was a few seconds of silence and then, I'm burning your parents' house. Token declared. Toya, no. You'd hurt yourself more. I have a perfectly good baseball bat behind the counter. Izuku shot back. Guys, that's a really nice thought, but I'd rather just leave it all behind. My home is here now. As you wish, Himiko. Izuku said with a sunshine smile. If that's what you want, Blondie. Token said with a smirk. Izuku stretched and yawned. All right, he said, this day has been tiring, both physically and emotionally, and we have work tomorrow. It's time to go to bed. Token and her exchanged a glance and, with twin sheet-eating grins, they answered. Yes, Dad. In unison before fleeing to their respective room, leaving behind a sputtering Izuku. Just how many spare aprons did you order? Toya asked. Izuku got out of the reserve with a Midori Cafe apron that he ceremoniously put on Himiko. Well, you see, there was an interesting discount when I ordered them, so I have, like, 4. Great, so that means you can grab at least another stray. Toya sassed. Izuku did the mature thing and pulled his tongue out at him. He then turned towards the girl, who was fidgeting with her skirt. Don't worry, he said as he grabbed and squeezed her hands, you're just gonna shadow Toya for the morning rush, and then once things calm down he'll show you the ropes. It's really not that difficult. She gulped, then nodded and he could see resolution in her eyes. He turned to his unofficial second-in-command. The man was rubbing at his pinkish-red scars, a sign he was nervous. Probably at having to teach. But the quirkless teen was sure things would go well. When he caught his eyes, he gave him a nod and a smirk. The team was ready, so that meant one thing. Izuku walked to the entrance and flipped the open sign. We get a couple loyal regulars before the morning rush, Toya told Himiko. But don't worry, Mini-Boss take care of them himself. Not a moment later, what Izuku could only describe as a mummy walked in. He stared at them, at the familiar haircut and gear, as they took a very specific seat. Shota, is that you? A nod. Mechanically, the barista started working on his usual order. What happened to you to leave you in that state? You're a teacher at UA. You were one of the professors hurt during the villain attack, weren't you? That's right, problem child, but don't worry, I'm okay. You don't exactly look okay. Toya piped up. Please don't tell me you're gonna teach in that state. Izuku pleaded. The brats need me. You should be in a hospital. I'm fine. Izuku groaned. I see you've hired another help. Shota remarked. Yeah, change the subject. Meet Himiko. She moved over this weekend and this is her first day. Shota Aizawa, teacher at UA. They both bowed at each other. Where do you keep finding them? You haven't passed an announce, have you? Oh, I found them in my back alley. Izuku answered with a sheet-eating grin. The worst is that I know you're saying the truth. Wouldn't it be safer to do a little research on them? Naomasa could help with that. Izuku noticed his two employees tense. Nah, that won't be necessary. They're just people that were in need of help, and I provided. Nothing less, nothing more. The teen said with what he hoped was his most trusting smile. Well, if you say so, problem child. Shota sighed. Just remember you have the detectives and my numbers if anything does happen. I will, promise. Shota somehow managed to gulp his coffee in between the bandages, paid, and left with a goodbye. That's one dedicated teacher. Himiko remarked. Yeah, it would seem so. Wish mine had been half as dedicated. Izuku sighed. Himiko and Toya each patted one of his shoulders. Thanks, guys, he said with a smile. About 15 minutes later, Momo walked in with a smile, and Izuku immediately brightened. He started on her usual as she seated right in front of him, and the two started a conversation the latest hero debut. He decided to ignore how Toya leaned in to whisper something in Himiko's ear, and how she giggled while staring at them with pink cheeks. And her quirk is so cool, he gushed. Create hands out of any surface would be perfect for rescue and for villain control. Just pop 4 hands on the guy and he's as good as restrained. You're right, but we have to wonder what are her limits, and if she feels pain when one of the hands is damaged. That could be a serious restriction. You have a point? She'd have to be way more careful about how she goes to use her quirk. I still think it's a very powerful one. On that we agree. She winked at him, which made him blush. He quickly turned to hide it, though it was a failure if the charming giggle behind him was any indication, and looked at the clock. Don't you need to go to class? He asked. Oh, you're right. I didn't see the time pass. Thank you, Izuku. You're welcome, Momo, he answered with a soft smile. She dropped the money on the counter and rushed outside with her bag on her shoulder. Himiko bounced to the counter and wriggled her eyebrows at her boss. So, you and that Momo girl are Izukin? She said cheekily. Hush, he grumbled, cheeks still red. The morning rush is about to start. Himiko with me. Intervened Toya, saving him from more embarrassment. You ready, mini-boss? Izuku cracked his knuckles. Ready as I'll ever be. The morning rush came and went, and at first Himiko looked almost panicked at the waves of students and businessmen rushing through the cafe, but by the end of it she was more sure of herself. Perhaps it was because Toya's ease at the job made it look easier than it was, and she'd still have a bit of a hard time tomorrow, but Izuku was sure she'd get used to it. She had that determination in her eyes that told him she wouldn't let him down. And she was off to a good start. Under the watchful eyes of Toya, she took her first order, brought it to him and served the clients without making a mess, all with a smile and an infectious enthusiasm that worked surprisingly well with Toya's more relaxed attitude. The cafe was calm and his new waitress seemed to be doing well, so Izuku approached Toya. Hey, can I leave the cafe in your care for around half an hour? I've got a little something to do in town. The man looked around, gauging the state of the place, then nodded. Sure thing, mini-boss. Hopefully things will still be this calm. I'm not too worried. Izuku laughed. Afternoons were always calm after all. Izuku waved and left the cafe. He had 2 stops which should hopefully not take him too long by train. The first one was the hardware store, where he got his package. He stuffed it in his pocket then moved to the mall, to the phone store in particular. He got 2 smartphones he had made research for late last night, as well as 2 phone cases, a black one and a bright pink one. He took the train back and walked back into the cafe. As expected, it was still calm and according to Toya, Himiko had done no mistake yet, so everything was all right. Between 2 clients, Izuku waved his 2 employees to the counter and put the packages in front of him. Oh, what are those? Himiko asked excitedly. They're for you. First, he opened the small package and keys fell on the counter. Those are your keys, so you can come and go as you want during your days off or after work. I trust you not to abuse the responsibility of having the cafe key. They both nodded with a serious air, taking in the stern look of their boss. Hey, why is there a 4th one? Toya asked. I took the opportunity to make myself a spare, just in case. Now for your gifts. Gifts, again? Himiko asked with her mouth agape. Well, it's gonna be very useful for all of us in the future anyway, so. He slid the 2 smartphones at his employees, the black case one to Toya and the pink case one to Himiko. They gaped at him. You're both on my phone plan, so it doesn't cost me that much more, and that way we can keep contact if you're not here. And well, you get internet access as a bonus. I'd also advise to put in Shota and Naome's numbers, just in case. They did just that after exchanging all their numbers. Toya seemed happy enough to have a phone on him. It seemed the possibility to contact both the teens reassured him. Himiko, on the other hand, was ecstatic to have access to social medias again, and Izuku couldn't fault her, even though he wasn't that much online himself. After that, they finished the day in relative calm with a few late customers, and closed for the night. Then they ate dinner, Himiko basking in Izuku's compliments for her first day. But I warn you, he said, tomorrow you're participating in the morning rush, and as you've seen this morning it's a different story. I promise I'll do my best, she said with resolution in her eyes. Izuku nodded, and they cleaned the dishes together before going to bed. A few days had passed since Himiko's debut. As expected, she had had a little difficulty with the morning rush at first, but she was getting the hang of it. Izuku was proud of her. She had taken to her tables, and Toya and her had mastered avoiding each other when joining or leaving the counter. The cafe was running perfectly, and Izuku couldn't be happier, though he had the feeling it still missed a little something. What exactly, he couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he was sure he'd end up having an epiphany. And it would cost nothing to ask his employees, as well as some clients when the time was right. Mini boss, 2 cappuccinos, a macchiato and a hot chocolate please. Izuku, 2 espressos please. Not during the morning rush, for example. Izuku quickly got out of his reverie and went to work on the orders, Toya giving a hand. In record time, the orders were leaving, and the teen smiled when he noticed 2 familiar head of purple hair in one of the booths. It seemed like Momo's friends had definitely joined the regulars. It was nice getting more regulars. He'd have to tell Momo the next time he'd see her. Once things calmed down, Izuku sent his waiters on break, which meant that they sat in one of the booths with a drink, or a pouch of blood in Himiko's case, and played on their brand new phones. The bell above the door rang and Izuku turned towards the door with a smile that turned into a frown as he saw 3 men enter with mean grins on their faces. The one in the center, a guy with short blonde hair, approached the counter while the 2 others, one with long black hair and one with red hair, stayed near the door as if guarding it. The teen subtly reached behind the counter, closing his fist on a certain handle. All right, brat, the man said, slamming his hands on the counter. Cough up the money and nothing wrong will happen to you, little shop. He punctuated by breathing flames from his nostrils. Toya and Himiko were tense from where they were, but Izuku subtly shook his head. He could handle this, and he'd rather not put them in any more danger. He affected a terrified face. That wasn't hard, he just had to act like when he was bullied, and pleaded. Okay, I'll give you everything, please just don't hurt me. Good kid, the guy said with a manic smile. Izuku went to open the cash register. The man leaned in to admire the money, liking his lips. He prepared to snatch the bills, and got hit straight in the face by a baseball bat. The teen slammed the cash register close and jumped over the counter, stomping on the down man's stomach as he did. While the boss was whimpering on the ground, the 2 goons seemed to get out of the utter shock they were in and prepared to attack. Goon number 1 extended his long black hair and Izuku blocked it with his bat, letting the hair enroll around it. Then he gave a good pull, and whacked the villain as he tumbled towards him. He fell to the ground, his hair going limp. The third one looked at the door and for a second, Izuku thought he was going to make a run for it, but in the end he threw himself at the teen with a roar, showing off his hand shape-shifting into a lion's paw. Running barehanded, even with claws, at an armed enemy was not a very sound tactic, Izuku thought, as he bashed the bat in an uppercut that stunned him before hitting him in the guts with a well-placed kick, sending him sprawling. The green-haired boy looked at his work, the 3 men knocked out on the ground. Clearly, they thought it would be easy to rob a 15-year-old and had not done much preparation. Him, on the other hand, was very glad he had had the presence of mind to get that baseball bat. He was so gonna brag to Shota the next day. He did a little spin with it, before resting on it like a cane. "That was amazing, Izuku," Himiko exclaimed. "Yeah, very impressive, mini-boss," Toya added, "but shouldn't you call Detective Tsukachi before they wake up?" "Oh yeah, you're right." Izuku took out his phone and went to Naomesa's contact, perfectly ready to give the older man a heart attack. "Detective Tsukachi on the phone. What can I help you with?" The detective's voice sighed in resignation. "Hello, detective, this is Izuku Midoriya from the Midori Cafe. 3 villains just attempted to rob me." "What? Are you okay, kid? Do I need to send an ambulance?" "Well, yeah," he hears a sharp intake of breath. "But not for me. These gentlemen met my trusted baseball bat and are currently knocked out on my floor. But I'd appreciate some police presence before they wake up. Some police presence who won't make things harder once they know I'm quirkless, if you catch my drift." "Sure, kid, I'll be there in 10 minutes. You're the best, I'll make you your usual." "Thanks, kid," he laughed before cutting off the call. Well, that was a promising morning. As promised, Izuku had Naomesa's usual ready when he walked into the war zone. He sighed and ordered his men to cuffs and dragged the dazed villains to the police cars. Then he took the kids' deposition as well as the 2 waiters, and what a surprise to Naomesa that Izuku had hired more. Their story was solid, and to boot, Izuku actually had video evidence as there was a camera security system in the shop. The data was transferred to a USB drive that they'd check at the station, but the case was pretty cut and dry. The villains were caught in the act and would go straight to jail. Meanwhile, Izuku would be left alone on account of not having used a quirk to defend himself. Izuku introduced Himiko and Naomesa before the latter had to leave. "Well, how about you 2 sweeps the broom while I take a quick break?" Izuku said, stretching. "Mini-boss, tell us at least where you learned those sick moves?" Toy asked. "Oh, that? I trained watching baseball and self-defense videos." On those words, he disappeared upstairs. He was back down not even 10 minutes later, putting back his baseball bat under the counter and started to rub the latter with a rag despite it being in perfect condition. Toya and Himiko exchanged a glance, but shrugged off their boss behavior, deciding to slack a bit before the afternoon clients started to arrive. That was until a familiar figure walked in and Izuku's eyes started sparkling. They both grinned as the teen made 2 cups of coffee and slid in the booth in front of Momo, who had sprawled what had to be homework on the table. "Good afternoon, Momo," he said with a soft smile. "Good afternoon, Izuku," she answered just as softly. "I took the liberty to make your usual. Don't worry, it's on the house." "Izuku, I can't just accept," she said, a hand over her heart. "Please? For my favorite regular," Izuku said with his best puppy eyes. "Fine, but it's because it's you," she conceded, cheeks turning pink. "Rip Eraserhead." Toya coughed, but Izuku decided to ignore him. "Say, I had a question. I feel like my cafe is missing something. Would you have any idea what?" "What?" "I think pastries would be a good complement to your coffee." "Pastries, but of course," Izuku exclaimed, slamming his fist into his open hand. He'd have to pass and announce next week that they were searching for a baker. "So, are you feeling ready for the sports festival?" the barista asked her. Momo pushed a paper she had completed to the side and nodded with a bright smile. "Yes. I've been training hard with my classmates for the past 2 weeks to be ready for all they could throw at us," she said excitedly. "And you remember my advice, right?" he asked. "Always having several plans in mind and not block if one doesn't go the way it was planned," she recited seriously. "And always observe your adversaries. You can learn a lot about them just by observing." Momo nodded. "Don't worry, I'll make you proud," she said, resting her hand on his. They both stared at it for a few seconds, turning as red as tomatoes. Momo retrieved her hand like it was on fire. "I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me." "It's okay, don't worry," a flustered Izuku answered. After that, the conversation turned less serious, with Momo showing off the new makeup she had just bought to a confused but enthusiastic Izuku. That's when a clap and the scream of a familiar voice echoed in the cafe. Izuku raised up with an air of utter sternness on his face. "If you'll excuse me 1 second." He walked toward the table where Himiko was still glaring at a small bee, who himself had a smug smile. His friends looked dismayed. "Dude, are you serious right now?" whispered one. "That's totally not cool, you know that, right?" whispered the second. "Oh come on, she was asking for it with her skirt," the perpetrator said out loud. "Excuse me, but the only thing my waitress may have asked for is your order." Izuku growled. "Oh yeah, what are you gonna do about it, Skimpy? I'll have you know I'm a hero student." So Izuku grabbed him by the face. He swore he heard a squeaking sound, and lifted him from his chair, dragging him to the exit and throwing him out. "You're no longer welcomed here. Try to enter again and I'll have to use more drastic measures," he said with his customer service smile. The arrogant gremlin's two friends followed out with their heads down, complaining that he ruined them the best cafe of the corner, and Izuku, calmed down, returned to sit with Momo after making sure Himiko was okay. "I'm sorry, this was one of my classmates. I'll notify Professor Aizawa of his comportment." "Don't apologize for him, you're not responsible for his actions." Still. So where were we? Alright, eyeliner. Now, I don't know half as much about makeup as one of my classmates, so all this is basically her recommendations. Shota, still mummified, was here for his morning coffee, but he kept eyeing Izuku. The barista raised an eyebrow at him then smirked. "Wow, you're so impressed by my little stunt yesterday, Shota? I know Naomasa showed you the footage, he told me." "I am, and I still believe you'd make a demon fine hero dash." They both ignored how the teen flinched violently and grimaced. "But I'm not here to talk about that. What are you doing tomorrow?" "Well, duh," Izuku answered as if the answer was so evident asking was offensive. "We're tuning the TV to the sports festival and I'll try not to miss a crumb of it. Which means I'll be at the coffee machine so the mini-boss can watch TV like the teen he is." Toya pointed out with a smirk. "As if we won't both have our eyes riveted on the TV as much as possible, token." Himiko teased. "What if I offered you 3 a better view?" Shota asked, dropping 3 pieces of papers on the counter. "No, not papers," Izuku thought as his eyes widened. 3 tickets for the sports festival. 3 VIP tickets for the sports festival." The green-haired boy slowly extended his hand, not believing the treasure in front of him, and stopped short of grabbing them. He looked back up at Shota, eyes narrowed. "Those things cost a fortune and I doubt my good coffee is reason enough to get that kind of gifts. What's the catch, Eraserhead?" Hero name because this was no doubt serious business. "Sharp as ever, kiddo," Shota said with a maniacal grin. "I have a deal for you." He returned to his serious face. "Remember that notebook you showed me? Make one about the first years during the festival. Strengths, weaknesses, ways of improvements. Thanks to the tickets you'll have a perfect view of the brats. Of course, we're not asking you to do that for free. You'll be paid the fees of analysts working for UA along with a bonus to cover for the day you'll have to close the shop." Izuku nodded, putting a hand on his chin. He couldn't find a single downside to this offer. He could see the festival live with his friends, he could do analysis, he was paid for it, and even the cost of closing the shop would be covered. It was perfect. So perfect, in fact, he'd be ready to bet it was drafted by the principal of UA. He decided to inquire on what would happen to his notes afterwards. "I'm guessing you won't just pass my notebook along the students?" he asked. "No, us teachers are gonna review your notes and transfer them into booklets for each student. The notebook will be put away for safekeeping and, if it's as good as I expect, used as an example on how to do analysis for the second years." He grinned. Izuku wasn't so sure his hobby was that good, but Shota was the pro, not him, so well. Then the teen thought about a certain person who had to be in the hero course and wouldn't take well to receiving advice from Izuku Midoriya. "I want anonymity." Shota blinked at him, but nodded. "So, kid, what do you say?" He offered his hand. "It's a deal," the teen answered, shaking said hand. Meanwhile, on the sidelines. "Oh my god, Token, we're gonna see the sports festival live." Himiko screamed while shaking Toya from left to right. "That's great, Himiko, but continue shaking. This it's sick." "Oops, sorry," she said with a cheeky smile. He messed up her buns as a vengeance. "No." She cried dramatically as she went upstairs to redo her hair. Izuku and Shota exchanged a glance at the scene, and Izuku shrugged. "You've gathered quite the lively bunch," the man remarked. "Yeah, but I adore them all the same," Izuku said with a soft smile. "Oh mini-boss, we love you too, don't worry," Toya said as he draped himself over the teen, a lazy grin on his face. "Right, Himiko?" Himiko, who was back, bounced to them and joined the hug. "Of course we love you, Izuku. Guys." Izuku whined, face red. Shota snorted, then paid and abandoned Izuku to his employees, who released him soon after. A few minutes later, Momo entered the coffee shop, her usual bright smile gone and a slump in her steps. "What's wrong, Momo?" Izuku asked, already working on her usual. I wanted to buy you a ticket for the sports festival, but by the time I came to the decision, they were all sold out." The green-haired boy's heart broke a little at the sad face on the black-haired girl. He had to cheer her up. "Well, good thing UA itself invited us to come watch the festival, then," he said, producing the 3 tickets he had received from Shota. Momo gasped, eyeing the VIP tickets. "That's wonderful," she said, though for some reason she had a little pout. "But why do UA invited you to watch our sports festival?" "That, my dear, is a surprise," he said with a wink, leaning over the counter. "Oh, come on," she laughed, shoving him playfully. "That's not important," he said with a smirk. "You know what is?" He rested a hand on hers, squeezing it. "I'll be there to watch you win." Momo's cheeks tinged red as she looked at their hands while Izuku could feel his face warm up. He looked aside and crossed eyes with his employees. Toya had a lazy smirk while Himiko had the biggest grin. It was like watching a show for them. Well, maybe they had had enough spectacle for today. Izuku got his hand back and smiled at Momo. "Hey, I know a cool ice cream parlor 5 minutes from here. How about I treat you after school? To pump you up before the festival?" he offered. "I mean, I'd love to, but your cafe?" she questioned. "Don't worry, those 2 can handle an afternoon without me," he said, pointing at the man and older teen who had the audacity to look betrayed. He stuck his tongue at them. "Well, if you're sure. We're meeting here at 5. "Yep." "Gotta go," she said, letting the money on the counter. "See you this afternoon." "See you later," he called after her. He turned to find his employees me grumpy me smug. "So you abandon us for all an afternoon?" Toya started. "Just so you can go on a date." Himiko finished. "First of all, it's not a date, it's a hangout between friends." Izuku defended himself. "Yeah, keep telling that to yourself." The scarred man mocked. "It's totally a date and you'll pass for an idiot if you don't treat it like one," the teenage girl added. "I mean, you invited her for ice cream and even promised to pay." "Oh God, I invited her on a date." Izuku blanched. Toya looked at the clock. "Okay, morning rush now, panicking later." You're right. Everybody in place." The afternoon passed both way too quickly and too slowly at once. Izuku had no plan as to say, only advice from Toya to play it cool and let her set the boundaries. He had apparently read that in a magazine. Himiko had advice too, but hers were a bit too much, especially in the situation Izuku was where he wasn't even sure his feelings were returned. That's how he found himself facing Momo in a booth not unlike his own, a mint chip ice cream in front of him while she had a strawberry one. There was some awkward tension as they ate their ice cream, so to break the silence Izuku did what he did best. He talked about heroes. "Hey, you guys have internships after the festival, right? You should bring me your list of heroes so we could choose you one that would really help you. Kyoka and Hitoshi can come too." "That's very kind of you, Izuku. I'd love that and I'm sure they'll appreciate too." She put her head in one hand and the other hand on the table. Oh crap, was he supposed to take it? He decided to put his hand in front of hers, just millimeters apart. She approached her hand and started drawing little motifs on his with her fingers. Izuku took a deep breath. Then her foot nudged his, and he looked at her in the eyes, her marvelous, magnificent cat-like onyx eyes. Eyes full of softness, just like her smile. "You know, Izuku, in the weeks we've gone to know each other, you've become someone very special to me." Izuku gulped. "You're Special to me too, Momo. He said hesitantly. Things are complicated at school right now. It'll be a while before I get to breathe. But when I do, would you be ready to explore these feelings with me? Go on a real date, talk about what we feel, maybe even go out? She finished, red as a tomato. Izuku's smile became impossibly soft as he watched her. I would love to, Momo. I know I care for you a great deal and I'm ready to wait the time you need to be ready. Thank you, Izuku. She breathed, a smile that made him melt on her face. They left the ice cream parlor and walked back to the Midori Cafe, and if they were holding their little fingers on the way it was for them and for them only. Izuku banged on the doors, calling up to his friends. Come on guys, we don't want to be late, it's the freaking sports festival of UA. Yes, Dad. Yes, Dad, 2 seconds. The teens squeaked at the nickname but decided to let them finish preparing themselves and descended to brew everyone a cup of coffee. Toya joined him soon after, grumbling and scratching his side. He was wearing his long coat over one of his deep dope t-shirts and had applied lines of eyeliner. He gulped the beverage like a shot, unaffected by the scalding hotness of the liquid. Izuku wondered if it was part of his quirk, or if he had just developed an immunity like Shota and Naomasa. Himiko joined them 5 minutes later, wearing a white cardigan and a red skirt, along with white long socks. She had some lip gloss and red eyeshadow. She made a peace sign when the two looked at her and drank her coffee with more caution than her older colleague. Meanwhile, Izuku prepared a bag. He made sure he had his notebook ready, plus a few pencils just in case. He also packed a few water bottles, sandwiches he had made. Last night and band-aids, you were never too prepared. Then the trio closed the cafe. Izuku had made a sign that said, closed exceptionally for the day, and made their way to UA. Belatedly, the teen realized it was the pathway that took Shota, Momo, and all the students from the morning rush. It made Izuku smile to be the one to make the journey for once. As they approached the high school, the crowd around them became thicker, so Himiko grabbed both their hands as to make sure no one got lost. When they finally reached the gates, the green-haired boy showed the VIP tickets to the third-year student in charge of checking, and she directed them to a separate line. From then on, the walk to the tribunes was a piece of cake and they found places at the front row. Izuku sat next to the stairs, then came Himiko and Toya took the place likely to get someone beside, crossing his arms. The teen got his notebook out of his bag as well as a pencil, while the teenage girl observed the stadium slowly get full. They were testing the mics in the announcer's booth. Izuku squinted at the glass box high up and his eyes sparkled. Oh my god, it's the hero present mic, he looks even cooler from nearby. You call that nearby? Himiko asked, squinting at the booth too and grimacing. And that mummy? Oh wow, I can't believe they got Shota to comment on the sports festival. That's gonna be funny. You have really good eyesight. Toya mumbled, shielding his eyes with his hand to try and observe the booth. Finally, the people finished entering the stadium and the voice of present Mike echoed into the building. Welcome Mrs., Misters and everybody in between and outside of that. I hope everybody's ready because it's time for the first year's sports festival. I'm your CO host present Mike, accompanied today by my dear colleague Eraserhead. Give you us a hell yeah Eraser. Shut up Mike. You're no fun. After a bit more bickering, present Mike called each class to walk into the stadium. Some looked nervous, some looked determined. The general classes looked almost bored to be here. Izuku recognized some faces in the crowd from the cafe. But his eyes were inevitably attracted to Momo, who looked ready to take on the world. That fierce look on her face was simply gorgeous. You're staring, Izuku, Himiko sing-sang in his ear, making him turn red. Izuku squealed in delight when Midnight, which he was wearing a hoodie of, climbed onto the little scene. All right, she called into the micro, it's time for the pledge. I call the student who finished first at the entrance exams, Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku made himself small and hid behind his notebook by habit as a painfully familiar figure walked to the scene, hands in pockets and head held high, looking down at the entire year. I pledge. He started, then a manic smile spread on his face. To win this whole thing. Of course, his classmates and the other classes didn't take that very well and started booing him, while the spectators were breaking into hesitant whispers. "Shut up, you extras. You can be the stepping stones to my victory," he concluded before descending and being scolded by a guy with glasses and engines growing out of his legs. Interesting, was he related to Ingenium? Irrational fear forgotten. It's not like Kaken could attack him in the middle of the most televised event in Japan with heroes around. Izuku opened one of the pages of his notebook and started drawing glasses, with an emphasis on the engines. He was curious to see them in action. In fact, just observing the hero classes gave him a lot of questions, like this guy with a raven head, the big kid with multiple arms, or the one whose head was a literal manga text bubble. He made sure to memorize the faces of the 40 students he was supposed to analyze so he could follow them along the trials of the festival. Speaking of, midnight announced the first one, a race around the stadium. "This is going to be interesting," he said, leaning forward and ready to write. "The first obstacle isn't what the students think it is," Toya pointed out. "What do you mean?" Himiko asked. "Look at the starting line. It's a bottleneck," he answered. She said. "That's going to be a tough one," she giggled. The start of the race was shot, and indeed, most of the students ended up crushing each other in the entry of the stadium. But a few of the hero students managed to pass through with clever use of their quirks. Izuku was writing like crazy, observing the students passing through the giant robots. Holy shit, did Momo just create a cannon? The pits and through the minefield, flipping from page to page depending on who he was writing about. Toya and Himiko seriously admired his skill at writing and drawing so fast while staying readable. In the end, Kaken ended up first, with Shoto Todoroki arriving second. Izuku had a lot of theories about the Todoroki kid, from the fact he didn't use flames despite being the son of Endeavor as to the reason why, linked to a certain waiter of his. This was a situation he would have to tread lightly. He took twice as much notes during the second trial. It was easier when it was only the hero students on the arena, though Izuku had to give an applause for the support course girl who had passed. But yeah, he finally managed to get notes on Hitoshi's quirk, as well as other subtler ones like the blonde who could copy quirks by touching people. In the end, Shoto's team managed to steal Kaken's headband and finished first, to the rage of the blonde. There was a 30 minutes pause for the students to recuperate and for the crowd to use the bathrooms, and that's what the green-haired boy did. Leaving his precious notebook under Himiko and Toya's surveillance, he went to the bathrooms but got lost on the way back. As he was taking yet another turn into the maze that were the stadium's bowels, he heard the tail end of a conversation. "We'll never use your flames, I'll win with my ice alone. You can't continue this stupid little rebellion, Shoto. You are to be my masterpiece, whether you like it or not," growled another, older voice. "OF dash." Well, that seemed to confirm his theories. Now he had a hard discussion to have with Toya. But first, he flattened himself as Endeavor passed by him, not even noticing the teenager. Shoto needed his help, and that he could do. He walked out of his hiding place and approached the bicolor-haired teen, who threw him an icy stare. "If my father sent you to dash, your father is an abusive a-hole." That seemed to shut up the teen, and even break through his stoic mask, eyes widening. "Listen, I perfectly understand why you wouldn't use your flames, but they're yours, not his, and even if you do manage to finish number 1 just with your ice, which is impossible by the way, the hypothermia it gives you is a dangerous limit that only your flames can counter, just like your ice can protect you from a heat stroke. He won't care that you didn't use your fire, just that his masterpiece accomplished what he wanted. Also, I already pointed that you're doing yourself a disservice, but you could also put civilians in danger. Imagine civvies are in danger because of a villain manipulating ice and your flames are the only way to save them? You'd really have a body count just to spite your SPRM donor? Then you'd be no better than him." Izuku took a big inspiration. Shoto was staring at him, gaping. After a few seconds, he shook his head and looked at him, looking lost. "Then what do I do?" "That's simple. Learn to use your ice and your fire in a way Endeavor never could teach you. You seem to use brute force like he taught you, I guess. Well, no more of that. Ice is a construction power, trap your enemies in frost, make weapons out of ice, There's a ton of things you could do and I'm sure your teachers would help you find a new style. As for your fire, I happen to know a few heroes who uses their flames very differently than Endeavor, and I have no doubt they'll ask for you for the internships. So how about you pass at my cafe with Momo, Kyoka and Hitoshi, and I'll help you choose a mentor that'll teach you your own fire style. And then, show off your mentor at any occasion, so that your father can't take any credit for how you became a hero. I think I will. Thank you, I think I needed this talk. Shoto said, and it felt as if a weight had been lifted off his chest. I didn't catch your name, though? Oh, I'm Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. I need to go now, or my friends will worry. Good luck for the tournament. Izuku walked away, and after a moment, finally found his place back. Where were you, Izuku? You left for a long time. Himiko chastised him. Yeah dude, I was about to come search for you. Toya added. Sorry guys, I got a little lost and then I met with a student and we had a little discussion. Well, you're right on time, the teenager said. They're gonna start soon. A beep on his phone attracted the green-haired boy attention. It was a notification from Hero News. Oh hey, Ingenium managed to capture Stain, he said. The serial killer? Toy asked. That's cool. Himiko said, munching on a sandwich. All right everyone, Present Mix voice echoed, it's time for the one-on-one matches to start. Izuku readied his pencil and notebook, and cracked his neck. I'm ready, he said. The tournament was advantageous as the one-on-one gave him more time and material to analyze. Copycat was caught in Hitoshi's quirk with a few choice words from the latter. Support Course Girl used Ingenium Jr. as a walking billboard for her inventions before declaring forfeit. The two hardening guys ended in a draw. Kaken brutally obliterated the poor Gravity Girl. Electric Guy ended up frying himself against Vine Girl. Acid Girl beat up Shiny Guy with stylish moves and Momo managed to win against Raven Head, who could summon a shadow creature. By using said creature's weakness to light, dropping flashbangs from her arms regularly as she pushed him back out of the ring with a staff. He was so proud of her. Shoto's match was the most surprising, as he used a sword made of ice to cut through Weird Elbows Guy's tape before shoving him out of bounds. And thus, the first round of the tournament ended. The first match of the second phase finished as fast as it started. Ingenium Jr. sped through the arena and dragged Hitoshi out of bounds before he could even say a word. The same way, Vine Girl had no chance against Kaken's explosions. Acid Girl could move, but Momo had her staff and a clever use of nets to beat her and force her out of bounds. For his match against Rock Hardening Guy, whose victory against Steel Hardening Guy was decided by arm wrestle, Shoto transformed the ground of the arena into an ice ring, then ping-ponged the poor guy out of bounds with a giant hammer made of ice. Izuku was glad to see him following his advice. In much the same manner, the first match of the semifinals was quick. Ingenium Jr. tried to outspeed Kaken, but with pinpoint explosions he avoided him and sent him sprawling out of bounds. Honestly, Izuku wasn't surprised. Kaken was strong and smart, and UA seemed to have helped him refine his skills. His explosions were way more precise, and way more brutal than the ones he used to suffer through. But a part of him also hoped he would lose, get thrown down a peg or two. But whatever, because now was the match that the green-haired boy wanted to see. Momo versus Shoto. Part of him wanted to see how Shoto would apply his new techniques against someone versatile, and if he would resolve himself to call his fire. A greater part of him wanted to see Momo win and go to the final, especially since it meant she'd kick Kaken's butt. The two adversaries presented themselves on the ring, bowing to each other, then took a fighting stance. When the match started, Shoto immediately moved his foot, trying to trap Momo in ice, but she rolled to his left side and created a dull sword. She charged at him and went for a slash, but he created a sword of his own and deviated the hit. The ice weapon exploded under the shock, but another replaced it just as fast, and again with each move sent by the raven-haired girl. However, it was clear from the bicolor-haired teen's movements that he wasn't used at all to his new style of fighting, and that Momo had the upper hand. He was moving back with each hit, getting dangerously close to the edge of the ring. That is, until in a bit of luck he managed to disarm the girl with a well-placed hit. He followed by throwing ice spears at her. She rolled back and blocked the last one with a shield. She then created a spear of her own while Shoto created a hammer. Sure enough, he iced the ground again, probably intending to repeat what he had done earlier. He slid at her, aiming to hit her shield. But she saw him coming. She planted her spear in the ground, and when he hit her, she used the momentum to turn around and throw him a kick that sent him sliding away. He only stayed on the ring because he created a wall of ice behind him at the last moment. "Come on, Shoto," Momo called to him. "Show me what you truly can do, come at me with all your power," she said with a fierce grin. Something passed in the boy's eyes, and the next second his entire left side was ablaze. "Oh shit!" Izuku exclaimed, scribbling in his notebook at a terrifying speed. Endeavor was vociferating something from the bleachers, but it was barely understandable over the roaring of flames. Shoto seemed to say something to Momo, and then he sent a huge fireball in her direction at the same time as he sent a new wave of ice on the ground. The girl somehow avoided the flame and the ice, but the sudden expansion of the air due to the extreme change of temperature provoked an explosion. When the smoke disappeared, Momo was knocked out and out of bounds. Shoto was still standing, having iced his own feet to the ring, and seemed barely conscious himself. Medbots went and got the two students to bring them to the infirmary while Present Mike announced a pause so they could repair the arena. Izuku immediately got up, but stopped himself and looked at his friends. "Go see how she's doing," Toya said while waving his hand in a shooing motion. "And say hi for us," Himiko added with a grin. Izuku smiled at them and descended the stairs that took him inside the building. He wandered for a bit, passing in the student-only part. He hoped that if he got caught, he could mention that he knew Eraserhead. He was trying to look for a sign that pointed to the infirmary when a squeaky voice called behind him. "I'm afraid you're in the wrong direction, young man." Izuku didn't scream like a little girl. He did not. He turned around to find a small creature in a suit smiling smugly at him. "Am I a dog? A mouse? A bear? Who knows, but most importantly I'm the principal of you, Nizu. And if I'm not wrong, which I'm rarely if ever, you're Midoriya Izuku." Yes, it's an honor to meet you, sir." Izuku bowed deeply. He had always had a great admiration for the rodent, who had managed to become a hero despite insurmountable obstacles. "Professor Aizawa told me about your analysis and I'll admit I am rather curious about it. In fact, it was my idea to have you analyze our hero students today." "I knew it," thought Izuku. "I'm very eager to read what you wrote today." Nizu finished. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a little bit self-conscious. "You shouldn't expect too much, you know, it's just a hobby I have since childhood." And yet it managed to impress Professor Aizawa, who is a very difficult man to impress. "I think you're not yet conscious of your abilities, young man, but don't worry, we'll take care of that when the time comes. Oh, by the way, the infirmary is at the end of this hallway. See you, Mr. Midoriya." "Wait, what do you mean when the time comes?" Izuku asked. But Nizu didn't answer, just left with a manic laugh. Izuku pondered the cryptic words for a second, then followed the instructions and finally reached the infirmary. He knocked, and Recovery Girl, oh God, the Recovery Girl, opened and looked up at him. "And who might you be, young man?" she asked. "Izuku Midoriya, Miss Recovery Girl, I'm a friend of Momo. I know I'm not really supposed to be here, but Principal Nizu gave me permission so," he said sheepishly. She raised an eyebrow at him and looked inside. "Momo, dear, do you know an Izuku Midoriya?" "Oh yes, he's my friend." She turned back to him. "Fine, come in, kid." "Thank you very much." He walked in and his eyes immediately zeroed in on Momo, who was sitting on a hospital bed with a few bandages on her arms. He rushed at her side and took her hand. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes impossibly soft. "Yes, don't worry, my burns were superficial, Recovery Girl healed most of it. I'm sorry, I didn't win the festival despite your advice," she said, looking down. "Are you kidding? You've impressed me throughout the whole festival with your skills and your adaptability. You reached the semifinals, for goodness sake, that's something, and you held your own against Shoto who, from what I've seen, is a freaking powerhouse. You may not have gotten the gold this time, but I'm sure it's just a question of time and training before you're at the top of the podium. All this to say, he turned her hand and gently kissed her wrist. I'm proud of you. Momo hid her red face in her hands. Izuku, oh my god, thank you. The teen himself could feel his cheeks burn. They both ignored Recovery Girl muttering, ah, young love. Oh, yeah, Toya and Himiko say hi. Izuku said. Tell them hi from me then, she giggled. I've gotta go watch the final match, but I'll see you this weekend, right? He asked. Yeah. See you this weekend, she answered with a smile. Izuku waved her goodbye and returned to his seat. He was just in time, too, as present Mike was announcing the fighters. Momo says hi guys, he told his friends. Yay! Himiko said. Nice. Toya added with a smirk. The match was brutal. Shoto did his best, sending ice weapons and ice waves at Kaken, and even managed to hit him multiple times, but his explosions made touching him very difficult. And the more the match continued, the more his explosions were powerful. Kaken was screaming at Shoto to use his fire, but it seemed like the boy couldn't bring himself to do it. Izuku understood, of course, it would take more than one discussion to undo years of trauma. Boy, did he knew that, but it was not like Kaken knew that. And even if he knew, he wouldn't care. In the end, Kaken finished the match with a move that created a tornado of fire and sent poor Shoto out of bounds. The blonde was booed when he went and grabbed the unconscious boy, screaming about full power and unfairness, and the teachers had to intervene to separate them. The podium looked awkward, with Kaken chained to it so he wouldn't attack anyone, and with how he was thrashing and screaming it was a real possibility, and the others were trying to stand as far away from him without falling. Seeing All Might distribute the medals was a dream come true for Izuku, but the only photo he took was of Momo's proud smile as she stood there with her bronze medal resting on her chest. Finally, the event was finished, and the trio got back home. However, there was still something that weighed heavily on Izuku's mind, and he couldn't let it go or wait to address it. Once they were in the cafe, he spoke. Hey Himiko, can you go up ahead of us? I have something important to discuss with Toya. Sure? Are you guys, okay? The blonde asked. I hope we will be, he answered. Both his employees tensed at his answer. Himiko glanced back at them with a frown before climbing the stairs, and Toya was crossing his arms, confusion etched on his face. Okay, what did you want to talk about, Izuku? Remember when I said I got lost and got to discuss with a student? Yeah. That student was Shoto Todoroki. And before we talked, I overheard him talk to his dad. Toya's eyes widened. He looked to the side, taking a deep sigh. And smart as you are, you connected the dots together, didn't you? Yeah. What did you heard exactly? Not that much. But I'm guessing you were supposed to be the masterpiece, before Shoto, whatever that means, right? Yes. And what that means is that Shoto and I, as well as our brother and sister, were bred in an attempt to create a quirk strong enough to surpass All Might one day. Our father basically bought our mother in a quirk marriage for his putrid plan. He beat me up every day in the name of training, then threw me aside when Shoto's perfect quirk awakened. I continued training on my own, if only to prove to the a-hole he didn't need to put Shoto through the same thing as me, but it was useless. How? I ended up burning myself so bad. That day I had a brutal dispute with Endeavor, and he basically chased me out of the house so I wouldn't interfere with his masterpiece anymore. You found me a few hours later. Izuku had a hand over his mouth and tears in his eyes, horrified by Toya's story and the situation in the Todoroki household. Then the sound of footsteps echoed and suddenly Himiko was hugging the scarred man, sobbing against his chest. Don't you know it's bad to eavesdrop, twerp? He said, but hugged her back. Shut up and let me give you love, she shot back between two sniffs. There's one more thing you should know. Izuku interrupted. Toya looked over Himiko's shoulder. Shoto will be coming on Saturday with Momo and her friends because I promised him to help choose an internship. You won't be working so you won't see him, but if you want, you can. I will think about it. Of course. Izuku smiled at him. Toya smiled ruefully back. Okay, how about we all go up and watch a movie to unwind after such an emotional day? They climbed up to the apartment, unfolded the couch, and put on a Ghibli movie. And if they all fell asleep entangled with each other, no one complained. Izuku was starting to wonder if there was some kind of curse or something in his back alley. He was just on the way to throw out the trash when he heard sounds of fighting. Doing the most logical thing, he went back inside, grabbed his trusty baseball bat and slammed the door open with a kick. It knocked out a guy by the sound of it. He observed the situation. There were 4 men, counting the one now on the ground, circling a guy with an advanced lizard mutation who looked already roughed up. Without thinking, Izuku put himself between the lizard man and the thugs-looking guys. "Get out of here, kid, we're teaching that freak a lesson," one of them growled. "Yeah? Tell that to my bat." The teen shot back, slapping said bat against his palm. "Well, don't think we're gonna go easy on you just because you're a dash." He didn't get to finish his sentence as the green-haired boy slammed the bat in his guts. He followed up with a hit in the chin that made the guy spit out a tooth. Another one of the thugs ran at him ready to punch, but Izuku just sidestepped him and let him slam himself against the brick wall. The third thug looked at his down eyes and actually hesitated. The teen raised up an eyebrow at him, and the man approached slowly as if afraid of him. He tried to kick him, but the boy blocked with his bat before slamming him in the kneecap, moving into his stomach and finally bonking him on the head, sending the man on his knees. By the time the 4 thugs were able to stand again, they preferred to run away rather than continue being humiliated by a 15 years old. "And the next time you show your ugly mugs around here, I'll call the cops," Izuku shouted after them. "Whoa!" a voice muttered behind him. Izuku turned around and smiled at the lizard man. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm a little beat up, but I'll survive." "I can't believe you kicked their buttes just like that," the guy exclaimed. "Well, it helps to be well equipped," the teen quipped, spinning his baseball bat. "I'm Izuku Midoriya, by the way." "Shuichi Iguchi," the man answered, shaking his hand. "Come with me, we'll take care of those wounds of yours," Izuku told him, dragging him inside. "Well, are you sure?" Shuichi asked. "Yeah, don't worry." They sidestepped the forgotten trash bag. Izuku stopped to put the bat away in its place, and then they climbed the stairs to the apartment. Toya, who was on the couch tuning his newly bought guitar, looked up and blinked at them. "Oh cool," he said, "you found another stray," before returning to his instrument. "What does he mean?" Shuichi asked. "Don't worry about it," the teen grinned. "Now go sit there while I get the first aid kit." Izuku walked into the bathroom and dragged the large kit to the living room, where he found Shuichi sitting awkwardly on the couch next to Toya. He grabbed his arms and started inspecting the damage. "Did they hit you anywhere else?" he asked. "Nah, I managed to block most of the hits, only my face and my arms hurt." "Well, let's take care of that." Izuku took out a tube of bruise cream and started applying it on the young man's arms. "The name's Toya," the scarred man introduced himself. "Let me guess, Izuku found you in the back alley hurt and dragged you in?" "Shuichi. And it's more like he found me being attacked by 4 thugs, beat them up and then dragged me in," he answered sheepishly. "He beat up 4 thugs? Man, I wish I could have seen that." While Izuku was putting disinfectant on Shuichi's split brow, the sound of a door opening echoed in the apartment. Footsteps approached and a smug voice exclaimed, "Hey guys, guess who finally beat Dusty 420 in Tekken 8? It's Himiko. Oh, we have a guest." Izuku dragged him in after beating up some thugs that hurt him. Toya answered, "Yeah, sounds about right. Another stray then. Why do you guys keep talking about strays? Don't pay attention to them. Why don't you tell us a bit about you?" Izuku asked. "There's not much to say really. I'm 21, and I have a bit of difficult life because of my mutation. I got thrown out of my last apartment because of it. They raised the rent until I couldn't pay any more, knowing din well I didn't have a job because who would hire a lizard?" Himiko and Toya exchanged a meaningful glance as Izuku's eyes gained a determined gleam. "But, well, I do have a diploma as a baker. I love baking, it's my favorite hobby, and why are you grinning at me like that?" Shuichi asked in confusion. The green-haired boy was rubbing his hands. "Well, my dear Shuichi, I think we can come to an agreement. You see, I own the cafe downstairs, and I was exactly thinking of adding pastries to the menu. So, how about you work for me as a baker? You get your weekends off and a weekly pay. You'd really hire somebody like me? The young man asked in disbelief. I'm quirkless, I know a thing or two about discrimination. Izuku smiled ruefully. Oh, well then I'd gladly work for you. Izuku fist-pumped. Dude, you're not even surprised a 15 years old owns a cafe? Toya asked. Honestly, this is not even the weirdest thing about tonight. Shuichi answered. Fair enough. Oh yeah, the housing. Izuku came back to the charge. Sadly, I don't have any more rooms, but if you can bear to sleep on the unfolded couch in the living room, then it's yours for as long as you want it. Wait, seriously, you'd house me too? Of course. Free of charge. Well, I'd be stupid to refuse such an offer. Shuichi exclaimed. Welcome to the hurt in the alley and taken in then hired and housed by Izuku clan. Himiko giggled. You'll see, the unfolded couch is very comfortable. The lizard man paused for a second, then looked at the scarred man and the teenage girl. Wait, that's what you meant by stray? Yup. They answered in unison, sheet-eating grins on their face. You guys are so dramatic. Izuku sighed. All we said was literally true. Toya pointed out. With a sigh, Izuku rubbed the bridge of his nose. Okay, we're working tomorrow, so Shuichi, make me a list of what you'll need for the classics like cookies, brownies, and whatever you think would interest people, and I'll pass an express order for one day. Aye, little boss. Not you too. Izuku grumbled as Toya snorted. But Shuichi wasn't listening. He was tapping on his phone at a speed that could almost rival Izuku's scribbling. Almost. There you go. The teen read the list, typed it back on his own phone, and sent it to his supplier. When he received confirmation, he'd get everything by tomorrow morning. Thankfully, tomorrow was a Friday, so he could then do a real order during the weekend. Oh, how about we make him do a test? You know, to see if he's really good. Himiko suddenly exclaimed. I mean, I don't see why not, but he's already hired and he'll have his baptism of fire tomorrow, so. Izuku answered. Don't think too hard, she just want an excuse to get something sweet. Toya deadpanned. Exactly. Himiko grinned without remorse. Izuku sighed. Shuichi. I don't mind. I'll go fetch your apron then. It's a good thing you had one last spare one. Toya remarked. It's like it was destiny. Himiko exclaimed. And so they settled in the kitchen, the teen getting everything the young man would need out and then sitting at the table with Himiko and Toya. They watched Shuichi expertly handle the ingredients and the kitchen tools, and in a few minutes, a brownie was in the oven, and quickly the smell of chocolate invaded the apartment. The teenage girl was drooling, and even the oldest of the group seemed impatient to taste it. Oh yeah, Saturday afternoon we'll be going shopping to buy you some clothes, and a chest of drawers will settle in the living room for you. Izuku told Shuichi. You'd really go this far for me? He asked with a weak voice. You're just getting the same treatment as those two. I take care of my employees, the teen answered. No boss would go that far. Why do you? Like I said, I know what it's like to have a shitty life for something out of your control. So I guess I just want to help those who are in the same situation as me. Izuku smiled softly. Before someone could comment on that, the oven beeped and Himiko cheered. Brownie! You gotta let it cool first, you gremlin. Toya chastised her. Says the one who throws scalding hot coffee down his throat like it's a shot, she countered. Toya raised his finger to answer, then let it fall with pinched lips. In the end, they ate the hot brownie, who was divine by the way, while each talking a bit about their past and hardships. Then they went to bed as they had work the next day. Laying in his bed, Izuku rethought about his interaction with Shota that morning. The man had come to get the notebook from the sports festival along with his morning coffee. He had quickly flipped through it, and his eyebrows had raised and raised until they reached his hairline with each page. He had then thrown Izuku an impressed look, even so far as telling him he had rarely seen such a level of detail for someone who had to analyze on the fly. Maybe Nizu had been right, and there was more to his analysis than just a hobby. But what did that mean for him? He wasn't sure. The thing he was sure of, though, is that he had a coffee shop to manage. And speaking of management, it was time for Toya to get his promotion. Shuichi's baptism of fire had gone well. It had gone great, in fact. His treats were a success and he had to make a second batch right after the morning rush so there would be enough for the rest of the day. Fortunately, he had seen large on his ingredients order. He had met one of the most loyal regulars, a teacher at UA and hero named Shota who had eyed him, then asked Izuku again, before thumping his head on the counter at the teen's sheet-eating grin. His boss had had him register the guy's number, along with his, Himiko's, Toya's and the one of a detective. Just in case, he had said. Izuku had also given him a key of the cafe, so he could come and go when he wasn't working. Shuichi was touched by the mark of trust. Right now, it was Saturday, and the man was cooking some treats for the friends of Izuku that were coming to visit. You really don't have to, you know. You're supposed to be on day off, the teen said. Take that as a small thank you for everything you've done for me, little boss. Shuichi grinned. Fine, you win. Izuku shook his head. Soon after, the door opened, ringing the little bell above it, and a group of teenagers entered. He recognized the tall raven-haired girl as one of the bronze medalists from the sports festival. According to Himiko and Toya, she was also one of the most loyal regulars, though she hadn't been there yesterday because the first years were on rest from the festival. She was also apparently Izuku's kinda-almost girlfriend. He also recognized the scarred teen with white and red hair as the silver medalist and, seeing him from closer, he looked oddly familiar. He was almost sure the kid with eye bags that only a chronic insomniac could grow and purple hair defying gravity had made it to the tournament. He mentally excused himself to the purple-haired punk girl for having no idea who she was, though he totally dug her looks. Each of them was holding a pack of papers, and if Shuichi remembered well, that was the reason of their visit. The little boss was gonna help them choose a hero to do their internship with. Apparently Izuku was something of a hero nerd, as well as being good at analysis. It feels weird to be here when it's almost empty, the purple-haired kid commented. Yeah, the vibe is totally different, the punk girl added. Oh right, you two are more used to come during the morning rush, the raven-haired girl said. I like the atmosphere, the bicolor-haired teen remarked. Why, thank you Shoto. Izuku intervened from where he was brewing coffee. I put a lot of effort into making it nice and peaceful. Shuichi couldn't argue with that, it was true. His boss slipped behind him and served each teen their beverage. A hot chocolate for Shoto, a cappuccino for Kyoka, a macchiato with 5 shots of espresso for Hitoshi, and your usual Momo, he finished, softer. The man tried to commit the names to mind. Oh, by the way guys, this is Shuichi, my new baker. Izuku introduced him, making jazz hands. You're serving pastries now? Hitoshi exclaimed, sparkles in his eyes. Yep. The young man answered. Speaking off. He snapped his fingers right as the cafe's oven beeped. Proud under the applause for his perfect timing, he got the cookies out from the oven and slipped them in a plate before deposing them in front of the teenagers. And voila, he grinned. He received thanks from the 5 kids and started cleaning his workstation, keeping an ear towards them. He was curious, sue him. All right, let's start. Izuku said, cracking his knuckles. Who wants to go first? Kyoka? Well, I didn't get far in the festival so I don't have a lot of offers. She said a little dejectedly. That doesn't mean there's not someone perfect for you in there, the green-haired boy answered while looking through the pages of hero names. What are you looking for exactly? Something more combat-oriented, investigation-oriented, something about stealth? I need to learn how to fight better. I was practically useless during the USJ attack. You weren't. Momo interjected. Let's be real, Yamamoto. I only managed to do something. Because you made me a weapon, but I can't count on you once I'm a pro. I mean, you could just add a weapon on your costume if you feel the need. I know for a fact a good baseball bat can do miracles. Izuku pointed out. But if you want to learn to fight, you've got a request from Death Arms. He's got a strong fighting style, he could teach you a thing or two, but he also do some investigative work, which would work well with your quirk. Guess I'm going with him then. Thanks, Greenie, the punk answered. The green teen nodded. Alright, my turn now. I don't know most of the heroes who requested me. Hitoshi raised his hand. Izuku took one look at the list and deadpanned at the purple-haired teen. It doesn't matter, you're going with Eraserhead. You want me to intern with my own teacher? Hitoshi whined. Look, I'm guessing that with your quirk you want to go the underground route, and Eraser is the best underground hero. He'll teach you stealth, parkour, how to fight when outnumbered among other things. If you're lucky he'll maybe even teach you how to use his scarf. And as your teacher, he knows exactly which of your weaknesses to work on, which is an advantage your classmates don't have. Well, when you sell it like that it does sound like a good idea. The purple teen perked up. But how do you know so much about Eraserhead? He's one of my favorites heroes. I watched every snippet of video that manages to get on the internet before it's scrapped. The teen answered casually. Okay, maybe something of a hero nerd was a euphemism. Shuichi was impressed by the analysis though. Momo? Izuku asked, voice soft. I've given a look at the heroes that requested me, and noticed there was Uwabami among them. She's high in the rankings, she could teach me a lot, don't you think? The green-haired boy squeaked. Uwabami is more focused on her merch lines than in her hero career these days, she barely patrols. She's in the middle of an ad campaign for her new perfume line, so if I had to make a guess, she requested you for your looks rather than your performance. Oh, Momo said dejectedly. However, I see in your list that you also have been requested by Fat Gum, and that's way more interesting. His quirk also uses the fat in his body, so he could teach you how to better manage them and how to optimize your intake. He'd be the perfect mentor for you. You're right, I'll follow your advice, she answered with a bright smile. Hitoshi, Kyoka and even Shuichi snickered at how Izuku blushed. Okay, last but not least, Shoto. Let's see what we got. The green-haired boy took several minutes flipping through the novella-length list of heroes. Then he stopped, and his face illuminated. Bingo! You got a request from Fire Slasher. Who? Shoto asked. Fire Slasher. It's a new hero who debuted a few months ago. Her whole shtick is shaping her fire into cutting weapons. If she can teach you how to do that, combined with what you already debuted with your ice, you'll develop a fighting style that is entirely your own. That sounds interesting, I think I'll go with her. Thank you, Izuku. No problem, I'm glad I could help. Once they were done, the kiddos started talking about anything and nothing. Shuichi was about to leave them alone and go back upstairs when a figure appeared from there. The young man let Toya pass and watched him tour the counter and stop in front of Shoto, who was staring at him with wide eyes. Toya? He said in a choked voice. Hey, Shoto, the man answered ruefully. We thought, Fuyumi was inconsolable when Dad chased you out. You're okay? Yeah, thanks to Izuku. He picked me up and healed my burns the best he could. I've been working here since. Are you okay? I know what his training is like. Yes, he's not as brutal. Guess he doesn't want to damage his masterpiece. Fuyumi takes care of my bruises. That be yesterday. Shuichi didn't get everything, but what little he could understand made his blood boil. Endeavor had never been one of his favorite heroes, but if what the siblings were hinting at was true, then he may be the worst hero of this era. I have to tell Fuyumi and Natsuo, they have to know you're safe. I've visited her after the sports festival. Shoto exclaimed. Sure, but you guys have to make sure our sperm donor never hears of it. I don't want him coming here to make a scene. Don't worry, Shoto frowned. We barely talk to him as it is, we won't spill. Good. Toya said, fluffing Shoto's hair. Okay, what the F was that discussion? Hitoshi asked, voicing out loud what they were all thinking, except for Izuku, it would seem. It's a long and painful story. I'll tell you one day. But guys, this is Toya, my eldest brother. So that was why he was so familiar. Momo whispered. I'm very worried for you, dude. Kyoka told Shoto. Thanks, but there's nothing we can do for now. He answered. It's on this sullen mood that the teens had to leave, Shoto promising he'd come back once his internship was over. You okay? Izuku asked Toya. Yeah, I think I needed that. It'll be good to see Natsuo and Fuyumi too. That's good then, the teen smiled. Could someone update me a bit? Shuichi pleaded. Oh yeah, I didn't share that tidbit when we discussed the other night. Look, I'll tell you the story if you really want, but it's not pretty. We're friends and roommates, I want to know what happened to you. Toya laughed. Touché. But first you guys have shopping to do, don't you? He pointed out. Oh yeah. Let's go then, it's time to close anyway. Izuku said. We'll grab something to eat at the mall. You two be nice while we're absent, he added, pointing a finger at Toya. Yes, Dad, he answered, rolling his eyes. And stop calling me Dad. Never, the man called from halfway up the stairs. They arrived at the mall and started with the food court. Burger and fries devoured. They made a quick stop by the furniture shop to get a simple cedar chest of drawers. Then they made their way through the halls until Shuichi finally spotted what he was looking for. Oh my god, choked Izuku as they entered the hot topic. The young man didn't pay him any attention, grinning as he selected a few white t-shirts with dragon motifs, as well as a couple of purple hoodies. He also got a few black ripped jeans. He finished with a pair of black Converse. Why are you laughing? He asked Izuku as the latter was paying. Nothing, it's just. You and Toya are gonna get along well. Okay, he answered, confused. They made their way home. That night, Toya recounted his family's history over dinner, and it made Shuichi enraged. He promised himself that if one day he had the occasion to help Toya in any way, he'd do it. Last night, a villain by the name of All for One accompanied by several accomplices tried to take assault on Tartarus, the high-security jail, with the intention to provoke a massive evasion. Fortunately, due to a leak in the villain's part, All Might and multiple heroes from the top 20 were there awaiting for them. After an arduous battle that led to a lot of collateral damage, though, thankfully, no victims, the villains were all arrested. Some heroes received injuries and had to be brought to the hospital, but no one's life is in danger. All Might has described the raid as one of the most important success in his career, which is a lot considering his actions the past decades. Izuku turned down the sound of the news as he brewed Shota's coffee. Beside the teacher was Hitoshi, yawning, who had started his internship today. Thus he had graduated from the morning rush crowd to the early morning few. Man, that's really a chance that one of the villains leaked info. I can't imagine the disaster if all those villains escaped Tartarus. Muttered Shuichi from where he was putting the pastries in the display they had installed over the weekend on the counter. Disaster being a euphemism, Tartarus holds the worst villains that we know of. Shota grumbled, downing his coffee like he needed it to live, which, considering his eyebags, was a valid theory. Izuku served Hitoshi his own coffee, his regular old macchiato with 5 shots of espresso, as well as a piece of brownie. Himiko was taking care of a blonde businessman with glasses wearing a blue shirt, and Toya was passing the time cleaning the empty booths with a rag. In other words, the cafe was calm, so it was as good a time as any to make the announcement. Hey Toy, can you come here for a minute? The man dropped his chore and walked to the counter. What's up, mini-boss? I've been thinking about it for a while. I've decided to teach you the rest of my duties. Be it brewing coffee with the filter, or taking care of the stocks and orders. That way, if I can't do it myself for whatever reason, you can take care of it. So I get more duties on top of being a waiter, he deadpanned. Well, yes, but see it this way, you become my official right-hand man, which makes you Himiko and Shuichi's superior. You son of a beach, I'm in. You could hear the synchronized, hey, from Himiko and Shuichi as Izuku and Toya shook hands. We'll work on your training over the course of the week, it shouldn't be too hard. Izuku was abruptly cut off as he tripped and fell to the floor. A few snorts could be heard. You okay, problem child? Shota asked. I'm fine, he answered, quickly getting back up. He looked down and noticed the trash bag he had tripped on. Oh shit, I knew I had forgotten something last night. Language, problem child. Hey, you didn't say anything to Toya. He's a grown man, he's allowed to. Izuku squinted at Shota, who deadpanned at him, then at Toya, who was pulling his tongue at him like the mature adult he was. The green-haired boy took the trash bag and went through the back entrance and the short corridor leading to the back alley. He threw the trash into the dumpster and was about to head back when something small impacted his legs. He looked down to find a frail little girl in a hospital gown with bandages on her arms. She was also barefoot. Immediately, alarms blared in his head. He grabbed the little girl, putting her on his hip as she hugged him tightly and asked, "Are you okay? Please, don't let him take me again," she answered in a small voice. "Never, don't worry, you're gonna be safe, there's a hero and dash." "Eri," a cold voice called. Immediately, Izuku took a step back. The man who had spoke wore a coat with a purple feathered collar, gloves, a touch-based quirk. Not 5 fingers activated, otherwise the gloves would not have all their fingers, but the most discernible accessory he wore was the brown and gold plague mask on his face. His eyes were icy and fixed on the little girl, on Eri. She was shaking harder in his arms and the teen, affecting a scared expression, walked another step back. "I'm sorry my daughter bothered you. Eri, it's time to come home." His voice was emotionless. "Your daughter didn't bother me, don't worry." Izuku kept slowly walking back. He was almost at the street now. "But she seems a bit cold. I work at the cafe right here, let me make her a hot chocolate free of charge." The man matched each of his step, and his eyes were growing more and more into a frown as the interaction dragged on. "We really don't have time right now, so I'll have to refuse." There was now a hint of anger in his tone. By now Izuku had reached the street and was following the cafe's wall. Arriving at the level of the counter, he knocked on the window, and when Shota looked at him, the teen mouthed "villain," before turning his head right as the clear villain emerged from the alley, his eye twitching in annoyance. "Fine, I was planning to be merciful, but you leave me no choice," he said as he removed a glove. Eri started squirming, begging him to let her go before he was killed, but Izuku just held her tighter and reassured that nothing would be happening to him. In a second, the villain was on him, his hand covering his face. Nothing happened. "What?" he questioned. Never one to miss an opportunity, Izuku immediately brought his knee up and hit the guy in the crotch with all he had. The villain fell to his knees, whining pathetically and holding his crushed ball, and the green-haired boy followed up with a spinning kick to the face, sending him to the ground, unconscious. Not even a second later, Eraserhead was running out the coffee shop with a pair of cuffs in hand. "Be careful, his quirk is in his hands," Izuku said. "I know, problem child, I saw him attack you." Shota shot back in a stern voice. "Those are quirk suppressant's cuffs anyway, so he won't be doing anything even if he wakes up." Toya opened the cafe's door and called. "I called Detective Tsukachi, Eraser, he's on his way." "Nice hit by the way, mini-boss. This guy can kiss having children goodbye." "Thanks, Toya." Shota and Izuku answered in unison before the hero glared at the teen. "What?" the green-haired boy asked. "What you did was extremely dangerous, problem child. That guy would have probably killed you if I hadn't been there." "Yeah, but you were there. And I knew you'd have my back." The police cars arrived before the teacher could continue scolding him. The policeman grabbed the villain and dragged him to a car, while Neo Mesa took Izuku and Eraserhead's depositions. "So, what are we doing with Eri? She doesn't seem to want to let me go," Izuku said. As to prove his point, he tried to move her a bit, but she desperately hugged his neck tighter, shaking her head. "Well, I guess you'll be coming with us to the station and hope together we can calm her down enough to get information from her. Somehow I doubt this guy really is his father." Izuku nodded. "Just gimme a second." He opened the door to the cafe and called. "Guys, I'm going to the police station, you take care of the cafe." "Oh, Hitoshi, you should probably come too, Eraserhead is joining." "Yes, mini-boss." "Okay, Izuku." "Sure, little boss," came the 3 answers. Hitoshi just sighed, downed the rest of his coffee and followed Izuku outside. They both got in with Neo Mesa and Shota. "Don't think we're done scolding you for your dangerous behavior, kiddo," Neo Mesa remarked as he started driving. Izuku just grumbled. Back at the cafe, the trio was doing a bit of cleaning while there was no client. Fortunately for them, the morning rush had been way more manageable without the UA students, gone on internships, and they had pulled through without Izuku. The bell above the door rang and Toya looked up to welcome the clients, but his voice got stuck in his throat. Fuyumi and Natsuo were standing in the entryway. His sister had a hand over her mouth and his brother looked ready to cry. Himiko looked between him and the newcomers, then smiled softly. "Bring them to the apartment, we will take it from here." "Are you sure?" he asked. "Don't worry, I know how the coffee machine works, we'll manage," added Shuichi. He nodded his thanks to them, then turned towards his siblings. "Follow me," he managed to say. They went after him up the stairs and to the living room. He turned around and rubbed the back of his neck, not knowing what to say. But it seemed a dam finally broke, and suddenly his sister's arms were around his neck as she cried onto his shoulder. Natsuo joined in, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I'm okay, guys. I'm safe," he whispered. After the few minutes it took for the siblings to calm down, they sat on the couch and Toya served them water. "When Shoto told me, I almost couldn't believe it." Fuyumi sniffed. "So, where's that guy who saved you? We want to meet him." Natsuo exclaimed. "You've got a bit of a bad timing. We got a problem with a villain and he had to go to the police station, he'll come back late. I think you guys will have to drop by again." Toya explained. "Of course we'll drop by again, you're our brother, we want to see you." Fuyumi shouted suddenly. "Yeah, I'd appreciate that," the scarred man said with a soft smile. Fuyumi checked her watch and grimaced. "We should go home before father comes back. He's more angry than usual because Shoto doesn't intern with him. Though I'm reassured he's free of any rough training for a week." "Yeah, I know, it was my boss who directed him to the hero he's interning with." "Your boss sounds really cool," Natsuo said. "He is." Toya grinned. After another round of hugs and promises to see each other again, the Todoroki siblings left, and Toya went back down to the cafe to help his colleagues. A week had passed since what had been dubbed the overhaul incident, which was apparently the name of the villain Izuku had hit in the ball. They had learned that the guy was a Yakuza, and that he fabricated quirk-erasing bullets from Ares' blood. The information had been given by the hero Sir Night Eye, who had been working on the case for weeks and was a bit exasperated to see it derailed by a civilian. But it's not like Izuku was gonna let this guy go back with Ares, and after having learned the truth he was glad he didn't. They had also learned of Ares' quirk, that let her rewind living matter, and since she could not control it yet she had been put into the care of Shota. The beginning had been rocky, but apparently she had warmed up to the rugged man. Izuku had also had to suffer through an hour-long scolding from both Naomasa and Shota for his reckless actions. As expected, Toya had taken naturally to his new responsibilities and they now worked in tandem to make the cafe run. Finally, he had met the rest of the Todoroki siblings, who were very nice people who thanked him profusely for saving their big brother. Izuku was particularly excited today, because it was the reprise of classes for the students of UA, which meant that he would see Momo. He couldn't help but think about her, even as he was brewing Shota's coffee. "I can see you daydreaming, problem child. You better not mess up my order," he said, but he had a slight smirk. "Me? Mess up an order? Who do you take me for, Shota?" he answered with mock hurt, a hand on the heart. "Sometimes you're worse than my brats." "You wound me, Shota," Izuku said, serving him his coffee. "How is Eri? Is she acclimating well?" "She's still a bit twitchy, but she's getting used to be treated like a normal child. Yesterday she even patted BSTRD when he rubbed against her." "That's good to hear," the teen answered with a soft smile. BSRD was Shota's cat, a stray tabby cat he had adopted a few years ago. "Well," Shota sighed, "it's time I go take a nap before I get my brats back." "Good luck." Izuku laughed as he cashed in the money the teacher had left on the counter. "It's nice to hear the kid is getting better," Shuichi remarked. "Yeah, she deserves all the calm in the world after what she's been through," Toya added. "I hope we can meet her soon, she looked so cute." Himiko squealed. Izuku winced. "Give it maybe a month or two, and perhaps we can have Shota and her visit when we're closed." "Good enough for me," the teenage girl answered. That's when Izuku noticed a head of raven hair through the window. The bell rang and in walked Momo. She went up to the counter with a smile on her face and soft eyes. "Good morning, Momo. If it isn't the loveliest girl in the place?" The teen attempted to flirt. She giggled. You got something on your face, she said with a facetious smile. Izuku turned bright red and used his phone to check. He had a stain of chocolate from the cookie he had eaten at breakfast. God damn it. Good morning, Toya exclaimed, sliding to the counter. Good morning. Himiko joined. Shuichi just waved from where he was cleaning the oven. Good morning, guys. Momo answered them with a smile. She took her seat and Izuku went to brew her usual, the stain cleaned. There you go, Momo, he served her with a charming smile. Her cheeks tinted red as she sipped at her coffee. Izuku was looking at her with hearts in his eyes, and he was vaguely aware his employees were sending him smug smiles. The teenage girl sighed in contentment, elegantly putting her cup down. She then locked eyes with the green-haired boy, who immediately straightened, surprised by the determination that shined in them. Izuku, she started, then blushed a bit. I'd like us to hang out once the cafe is closed. I think there's a long-awaited discussion we need to have. She finished with a shy smile. Yeah, I think so too. I know a place that makes a wicked katsudon if it's okay with you. It should be calm by the time the cafe closes, so we can talk without being bothered. Izuku answered, cheeks red but with a bright smile. That sounds perfect. I need to go to class, but I'll see you later. Then in a bold move she leaned over the counter and kissed him on the cheek, near his lips. The teen blue-screened for a second while the teenage girl fled away, her face in her hands. She somehow managed not to run into the door, opening it quickly and shouting out a bye before leaving. Shuichi tapped Izuku on the back, nodding, a proud smile on his face. Himiko was squealing and jumping in place. Toya, his trusted right-hand man, was leaning on the counter, wheezing like he had seen the funniest thing in his life. Izuku found back his brain functions and turned as red as a strawberry. He coughed in his hand to hide his obvious embarrassment and clapped in his hands. Okay, that happened. Now team, get ready, we have a morning rush to go through soon. Mini-boss. Okay, Izuku. Sure, little boss. And with that the Midori Cafe team got ready for the onslaught. The afternoon was, as usual, a calm one. Shuichi, done for the day, was sipping an iced coffee at the counter. Himiko was cleaning the tables, and Toya was sweeping the floor. The bell above the door rang and everyone turned to see emptiness. They blinked, looked down, and blinked again as the principal of UA was standing there, a grin on his face. My, he said as he walked in, you have quite the nice quaint little cafe, young man. Thank you, Izuku said, a bit stunned. To what do we owe the pleasure? Why, I'm here to try your coffee, of course. Professor Aizawa lauds it at any occasion. Izuku blushed a bit at the praise, as Nizu jumped to reach a stool at the counter. Now, continued the rodent, I have to admit I'm more of a tea drinker, so I don't know much about coffee. Do you have a blend you would recommend me? The teen perked up, then put a hand on his chin. Let's see, for a tea amateur? Well, I have Cuban Crystal Mountain. It has a sweet, nutty flavor and low acidity. Oh, interesting. I'll trust in your judgment, Izuku. Izuku threw himself in his routine with expert movements. He dosed the beans from the pot, weighted them and ground them while the water was warming. Once the water was hot enough, he versed it over the grounds in the filter, letting them infuse as the cups slowly filled. Once he was done, he served Nizu with an assured smile. The principal took one sip of the coffee and closed his eyes, daintily putting the cup on the counter. The whole room seemed to retain its breath. Then he opened his eyes and his grin widened. You were quite right, Izuku. I do appreciate the flavor a lot. The tension in the room dropped all at once. Izuku fist-pumped. Now, I must admit, I lied a little bit. I'm not just here for the coffee, Nizu said, taking another gulp. I have read your notebook, and I am impressed with your capacities. Why, if we honed it, you'd be one of the best analysts in Japan, even maybe the world. Thus, I have a proposition for you. Become my personal student. What? Izuku asked in shock. Yes. We'd refine your analysis skills as well as working on other subjects that could help your work like informatics, hacking, or file research, and those are just a few examples. Under my paw, you could grow into something great. Izuku gulped. He could not lie to himself, it did sound very tempting. Studying under the Nizu himself? Make a work of his analysis? It sounded like a more reasonable version of his old dream. But what of the cafe then? He had worked very hard to bring it to its current success. Izuku was confused, the room spun a bit and his breath was labored. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course, Izuku, just give your answer to Professor Aizawa once you're decided. Nizu said with a warm smile. I'll take my leave for now, thank you for the coffee. Oh, and keep the change. Izuku choked on a laugh. Nizu had left a 1,000 yens bill, way more than what his coffee costed. He cashed it in, then sighed. He needed to change his mind for a bit. Hey guys, do you mind if I leave you to take care of the cafe? I'm gonna go prepare for my date with Momo. Sure, mini-boss, don't worry about it, go clean up for your girl. Toya teased. Izuku walked upstairs and Toya, Himiko and Shuichi exchanged glances. They had an important discussion to have and this was the perfect moment. Izuku shoved Nizu's proposition in the back of his mind as he took a shower. Now was not the time to think about that, he had a date ahead of him. He tried to tame his curls, in vain. Rolling himself in a towel, he moved to his room and opened his wardrobe. Now was the moment of truth. If he dressed too casual, Himiko would have his skin. But they were just eating katsudon, so overdressing would make him look ridiculous. He had to find the right middle zone. Dating was hard. He ended up putting up a green button-up shirt and a pair of black jeans. He finished the look with his good old red baskets, who had served him well for years now. He put a little dab of cologne, just for good measure. Once he was ready, he went to sit on the couch for a minute, trying to relax. It was just a date with Momo, the nicest, funniest, most gorgeous girl he had ever met, no biggie. It wasn't even their first date. And she had made clear his feelings were returned, so that wasn't even a worry. Yet, his anxiety was gnawing at him, telling him that something would go wrong. He tried to chase it away, and for that he thought of Momo, the smiles she seemed to reserve just for him, the way her eyes softened when she was looking at him, the red of her cheeks when she had invited him on the date. Slowly, the anxiety seeped away, replaced by a warmth pooling in his heart. He got up and walked downstairs. Toya was making coffee for an old couple sitting at one of the booths, Himiko dutifully waiting with her tray. Shuichi was nowhere to be seen, probably preparing for tomorrow. Himiko served the couple then came and silently squealed at him. See, mini-boss, you can clean up well when you want. Toya teased. What's that supposed to mean? Izuku shot back. That your t-shirts are an insult to fashion. Himiko deadpanned. My t-shirts are hilarious, the teen interjected vexed. You're the only one laughing at a t-shirt that says, pants, or dress shirt, Izuku. Himiko continued. You guys just don't have an acquired sense of humor. I need to go now or I'll be late. Izuku finished. Good luck, his waiters called in unison. Izuku walked out and gasped. Momo was waiting for him on the side of the shop, wearing a red sundress, sandals, a couple of silver bracelets, a pendant representing a little matryoshka doll and a cute little red knitted bag. The teenage boy was openly gaping at the beauty of his date. She turned her head towards him and her whole face illuminated, sending butterflies in his stomach. She lightly jogged to stop in front of him. Hey! Hey! I like the button-up. Thanks. I like your dress. Thank you. It has pockets. She showed it by plunging her hands in said pockets and twirling around. It was adorable. Then she grabbed his arm and Izuku felt himself redden. So, where's this katsudon place? I don't know about you but I'm hungry. Yeah, sure, the katsudon. Follow me. They walked through the streets, Momo still grabbing his arm. It made him feel all warm inside. He was almost disappointed when they arrived and she released him to enter. They took a sit in a booth at the back of the restaurant. A waiter came to take their order. Momo took a regular katsudon while Izuku took the XL one with extra pork. Wow, I know I need to eat a lot for my quirk to work, but even I am not sure I could eat that, the raven-haired girl said with wide eyes. Oh, trust me, I went through a light lunch just so I could destroy that thing, the green-haired boy grinned. So, about Dash. Momo's foot ran along his leg, shutting him up instantly. Shoo. Let's enjoy dinner and talk casually first, enjoy our date. We can keep the serious matters for after. I have an idea of a place where we can go talk. Essa sure. Izuku answered, shivering. The girl didn't seem to want to stop rubbing his leg anytime soon. Their food arrived and they started to dig in. After a few bites, Momo started the conversation. So today, Professor Aizawa gave us each a booklet of notes from an analyst who observed us during the sports festival, and those notes seemed very familiar for some reason. You wouldn't happen to know why, would you? She asked with a mischievous smile. I don't know what you're talking about, he answered, playing innocent. Don't play dumb with me, it's unbecoming of you, she pouted. So that's why you had VIP tickets? So you could analyze us. Yeah. It was Principal Nizu's idea. Speaking of the principal reminded Izuku of his proposition, and he grimaced despite himself. What's wrong, Izuku? Momo asked. It's just. Principal Nizu passed by the cafe today. He offered to make me his personal student. It's a wonderful offer, she exclaimed. Then, seeing his hesitant face. But you don't want to abandon the cafe. I mean, when I was a kid I wanted to be a hero because I wanted to help others. By being an analyst, I'd help plenty of people, so in a way I'd realize my childhood dream. And I'm aware of how much of an opportunity it is to learn under the principal of UA directly, but I've raised this cafe from scratch, it's my baby, and I can't just abandon Toya, Himiko and Shuichi. Momo grabbed his hand over the table, rubbing her thumb over his fingers. I can't answer for you. You have to make this decision alone. But take a little step back and reflect, there's often options you don't see. Maybe there's an obvious solution you haven't seen yet. I appreciate your wisdom. I'll think about it. Sorry for bringing down the mood. Izuku said, rubbing the back of his head. You don't need to apologize, I'm glad you can confide in me if you have problems, she answered, smiling brightly. To come back to your booklets, it was a huge success with the class. Everybody was impressed and excited to test your suggestions. Well, except for one of my classmates, who tore it apart saying quite insulting things, but we're used to him being like that. Izuku had a pretty good idea who it was. Well, I'm glad I could be of help. You and 1B are gonna make amazing heroes, I'm sure of it. Thanks, Izuku, she smiled softly at him. She squeezed his hand before retrieving hers to continue eating, and he did the same. Like he promised, he demolished his plate, and Momo applauded him for it. She insisted for paying and they got out. She grabbed him by the arm again and led him to a little park that happened to not be too far from the cafe. I pass in front of this park every morning when I make my way to school from the coffee shop, she explained. They walked in and sat on a bench. Momo dropped his arm but slowly grabbed his hand and intertwined their fingers. They were both a little red, but a small smile appeared on their faces. They exchanged a glance and started laughing at their own silliness. Momo, I won't beat around the bush, or blubber or anything like that. I'm stupid in love with you. I think about you constantly, the morning when you come for your coffee is the favorite part of my day. I love how smart you are, and there's also the fact you got beautiful eyes and a gorgeous smile. Good, because I'm stupid in love with you too. The gentle barista, who always has a funny joke, always ready to help people, and don't think I haven't heard about the incident with Eri, Toya told me, and that makes my day better with just his smile and a coffee. He gulped. You can't scold me for the incident with Eri, I've already been scolded by a detective and your teacher. You deserve it for your recklessness, but I'm also proud of you for saving that little girl, so I'll pass. Izuku sighed. Then, she put her hand on his cheek and his eyes widened. Was she? She approached her face, eyes closed and, following Toya's advice to be chill, Izuku closed his eyes too and leaned in. Their lips met, and the green-haired boy felt himself melt, especially when Momo slipped her hands into his hair, tangling her fingers in his curls. She liked at his lower lip, begging for entrance, and Izuku let her, miming into her mouth as he felt her tongue entangle with his. They continued this song and dance until they were both breathless. They separated and rested their forehead against each other. Wow! Momo whispered. Yeah, you can say that again. Izuku whispered back. So, we're together, right? Boyfriend and girlfriend? she asked. If that's what you want to, then gladly, he answered. She kissed him again. Once they were done, she looked at her phone. We should head back, it's getting late. My chauffeur will be waiting for me in front of the cafe. How, right, it is getting really late. Let's go. They marched hand in hand to the cafe. There was indeed a car awaiting in front of it. Momo kissed Izuku once more chastely this time, and smiled at him. See you tomorrow? Yeah, see you tomorrow. She climbed into the car, who disappeared around the block. Izuku, still smiling, unlocked the cafe but paused as he walked in and locked back behind him. Wait, she has a chauffeur? Am I dating a rich girl or something?